Holy frickin' crap, everybody. It's me. Oh, yeah, I like to start it off with a loud holy frickin' crap because everyone knows we're doing a Mack cast, so that means I'm excited.
Of course.
And sitting on the side of me in his lovely light blue mask that the fans haven't quite seen yet, but he's wearing it because we're doing the Mack cast right now. It's training number 1.
What's going on, Mack? I'm glad to be here. And tonight on the Mack cast, we have a former promoter / booker from PWF, Spence Jawitz. Am I saying that right?
Got it right, brother.
Awesome. We were worried about that on the way here. I was looking at the Facebook message. I'm like, I'm not sure what to say.
It's been said so many different ways, whether it's Jawitz, Jawitz. You've probably heard them all.
I dropped the Jew bomb a few on the way over here.
Brother, it's not 1942. You can't drop any more Jew bombs. Okay?
It's a hard J, Mac.
Hitler took care of that.
Man. And so we're gonna get into some stuff tonight, man.
Oh, absolutely.
You got a little bit of a list that I'm cool with following. We're gonna kind of mix it up a little bit, Mac. You're gonna throw your random questions that you love to throw in every interview about baby leashes or whatever.
I like to throw the guests off a little bit. We have it going on smooth. The Mack cast is going down, and then I throw a curveball at them. But no baby leash questions this time. But good. I do have some Mack news because it's been a very busy week for Monster Mack because it was my birthday a few days ago. That's right.
Happy birthday.
Give it up. I don't know if you've seen the Facebook pictures, but
Trainee, what'd you give him?
I got him a Batman parody porn.
Okay.
The 70s style though.
Oh, fantastic.
Not 70s porn, but 70s
Do
Batman.
Do you have the pow and the?
Oh yeah.
Oh, jeez.
During the boom and then the pow.
Splooge.
I got some Monster Mack T-shirts too for my birthday.
Along with WCW.
Oh yes.
That's awesome.
Still got the VHS running. Oh yeah. So I don't know if you've seen the Facebook pictures, but I would like to mention there was plenty of ladies at that party. They were just behind the camera. They were a little camera shy. So
they usually are.
Yeah. So they didn't want to be in that photo, but also we did some Whaling City wrestling. Yeah. And we couldn't win the tag team championships back, not quite yet, but it's still on the to-do list, if you know what I'm saying.
It's your bucket list.
Dude, it wasn't even like a tag title match. Both tag champs weren't even there. Like, we were in some sort of Survivor Series, Turkey, Thanksgiving elimination match with JB Tickle.
I'm so focused on winning them championship belts back. That's all I care about, Trainee. Yeah, we were in some kind of wacky-ass match. I can't remember. You want to refresh my memory, Trainee?
Sure thing, dude. It was me, you, and Training Number 9, along with Mike Montero and Jason Devine.
Oh, yeah.
And we took on Sergeant Muldoon, 2 convicts, one half of the tag team champions.
2 convicts. Isn't that half of the WCW locker room?
Yeah, I would have to say. It's about everybody has played a convict left or right.
Okay. Take that as you will.
Yeah, they brought in some random new guys I haven't seen and playing a convict before. That was interesting. And JB Tickle.
Yeah, I made sure to beat their asses.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, too.
I put that on the to-do list.
And also, in Mack News, upcoming, we got this weekend, NWW Extreme, Brookstone, Mass, NWWExtreme.com, because I don't know any more of the information. One guy from the SAT is going to be there, Brandon Webb, us, Crazy Chainsaw Bastard, Tank the Tank. And that's all I got for off the top of my head for the NWW show.
It's going down, NWW. Do you know their website? Do you at least know that?
I said it already. NWW.
Plug it again.
NWWExtreme.com.
And if you go to that website, you can check out their TV show. We actually made an appearance on their first taping of the TV show.
Doing the job.
I was gonna let all the fans know that we whooped their asses, but that's not where it went down. So that's okay. I think that's all I have for Mack News. It just comes out of my mouth straight from my head hole. I don't know.
Start off the interview, buddy.
Spencer, I want to ask how you doing on this fine night.
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you very much for having me on the Mack cast. It's no secret that I'm just about done with my wrestling career. I'm getting married. I'm focusing on other things. I feel like I've accomplished everything I just about want to accomplish in the business. And I've kept quiet on a lot of things over the last 13, 14 years I was in the business that I finally just want to get off my chest, get it done with, and move on with my life. I just think it was just a perfect opportunity for me to do that.
And what better way to do it right here on the Mack cast? Can you believe it, Trainee?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm posing for pictures here. I was paying 100% attention.
A little props to Mr. Nate Grist for taking pictures, and also thanks to
Give it up, people.
Rhode Island College for allowing us to come in here and do this fine podcast tonight.
Now, my first question is: you said you're getting married, correct? Now, does your woman have anything to do with why you're leaving the wrestling career? Did she put the chains on you?
I would like to go on record to say absolutely not.
Oh, really?
Really. It's something I've been thinking about for a while now, just because I'm just getting burnt out. I lived up in, we'll get into the story, but, I live up in Massachusetts and traveling down to Providence.
Yep.
I mean, it gets tiring, and I was head of advertising and promotion, so coming down quite often to doing advertising was just getting a lot. And I was actually going to announce I was going to leave after the Genesis show, which was the PWF WrestleMania type show in February. Unfortunately, we ran into a bunch of issues that we just decided now's the time to close. So I said, now's the most perfect time for me to step aside and do my thing. I was in the process of preparing things to have PWF continue on in a different way after I was gone, but things being that way it is right now, PWF is closed, unfortunately, but the memories live on and everything is great. But yes, my fiance has nothing to do with it. This is all my decision. She fully supported everything I wanted to do, but she knew that I also had other dreams and aspirations in my life, and that I was ready to go on to that and try something new.
You've been in this business for a long time. Was it 13 years?
Just about, yeah.
Just about. Geez, that's a long time, and I can totally see why you would get burnt out after such a long time. Wrestling is it's a lot of work to put into it.
It's a lot of work to put
shows together.
Not just that, but it's putting the shows together, putting the travel time, the politics, the bullshit. And I've dealt with my fair share of bullshit in my 13 years. And one thing I'm going to preface this whole interview about is I'm not claiming to be anybody in the business. I'm a nobody. I'm a blip. 5 years from now, you might not even know who my name is. I mean, it's the first time you and I have, actually formally met, but we've known about each other or just through the grapevine or this, that, and the other thing. But here's something else. You might not know me, you might not think that I've done anything in this business, but in the last 13 years, I've had my hand in a lot of things up and down the East Coast that you might not even realize that I had a hand in that. So I do have a story to tell.
Right.
And that's what I want to do. There's a lot of stories that I just wanted to get off my chest and just move on with my life. And I think that's what it comes down to. If you get anything out of it, you'll get some entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's why we're very happy to have you here on the Mack Cast, getting the info out to the fans. This is actually our first time. You're the first stranger to Monster Mack's world here on the Mack Cast. Usually all the guests that we have, we've known them prior to the interviews and stuff, and this is actually our first time meeting, and I want to know, and the Monster Mack Knights, the Mackanites, and the Monster Mack fans, they want to know your story pretty much. So we're going to get into it right now. We're going to do some time traveling back about, I don't know, let's say 10 years.
Okay.
You're a young child.
10 years.
10 years. I'm 37, brother.
No. Oh.
I look like I'm 40.
I thought you were in your teens. I thought you were just hitting 20.
You're too kind. Back when I started, Dr. Heresy used to say Father Time kicked me in the ass because I was in the 20s and I had a bald head. So
let's time travel back a little bit. Let's probably add 4 more years to that.
Okay.
You're a child. When did you find yourself first getting into the wrestling business? What piqued your interest?
Well, I'm a lifelong fan like everybody is. You have to be a fan in order to get into this business, because if you're not, what the fuck are you doing? That's a straight up thing. Scott Hall said it best when the NWO came into WWF and said, hey, we're all a bunch of marks. He actually said that on the pay-per-view, and it's true. We all got into the business because we had a love for the business. Right. We were all marks. And to an extent, we all still are. We love watching it. We might bitch every fucking week about it. Everybody's an armchair booker about how bad Raw is, how shitty the pay-per-view was.
Facebook is just ridiculous on Monday nights.
That's even worse. But the fact of the matter is that we were doing it back then too.
Yeah.
You know that you were playing with the LJN action figures or playing with the fucking old school G.I. Joes that had the bendy arms and legs, because they were the wrestling figures that you could use back in the day to do whatever you wanted, because the LJN figures or borderline just collectible items. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
wrestle with them, but you could do nothing.
Yeah. Just,
So, I mean, I'm a fan of my quick little story back when I was about 9 years old. My father took me to a show at the old Meadowlands, where Giant Stadium is.
Yep.
And it was the AWA NWA Supercard where Rick Martel lost the title to Stan Hansen. So that was my first exposure to the business. There was a scaffolding match. There was a flag match with Carl De Beers and Corporal Kirshner on there. So
what year are we talking to? This is what?
84.
I was going to say early 80s then, right?
84. And it was great because it's a Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. Martel was actually there.
Yep.
And I was proud to actually say,
The New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
yeah,
right, it's-
with Joe Bruin. It's great, great thing there. And I was happy to tell him, I was at that show, and he was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like seriously, I'm like, yeah, that's what actually got me my love for the business.
was that first live
It was
event?
the first live event, and then start watching World Class. I mean, I was a big Joey Chris Adams fan, a Missing Link, going back to Global with Lightning Kid,
Yep.
Waltman back then. So it was like I would watch all those shows, and after my exposure was AWA, NWA before
Even
Superstars.
Yeah.
Before watching, Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling and anything of that nature. So I always had a deep love for the business.
Right.
So that's where I got my interest in there. My involvement really didn't take peak until I was in college. I went to Curry College up in Milton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I went to a party my senior year with a number of friends of mine down in Providence. And at this party was Mad Dog Matt Storm, Draven, his partner from The Damned Vinny,
Yep.
and Stacy Lopes, who was Inferno and Dante back in the old NEWA days, I believe it was.
Okay.
Farraco and all those guys. And just talking to them when they say they were professional wrestlers, of course, first thing you're doing, you're marking out. I'll be the first person to say, I marked the fuck out because I'm meeting professional wrestlers. But I was picking their brains because I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I'm finally meeting professional wrestlers, and it was great. And this is about the end of 99, beginning of 2000. So ECW had not closed yet, and the indies were there, but they were not going through that boom that was coming within the next year.
Right.
So back then, the Damned were starting to become one of the bigger names on the New England circuit as far as tag teams up in this area.
Yep.
Them and the Egomaniacs, which was Mike Steele and I believe Johnny Idol. And they were about to start a school because they were branching away from the Kuroba,
Okay.
which they were working on with the EOS
Yep.
and those guys, and Anthony Stone when he was first starting
Right.
out,
Yeah. We mentioned.
and
talked about
Riot and all those guys.
Yep.
Because
Because they were renting the Kuroba out through.
correct, and the Damned were working with EOS to help with the training, and I believe
Yep.
that Matt and Vinny had a lot to do with Scott and Dre's initial training as well. So they all broke in together around the same time. So when the Damned were starting their school at the world famous Loomis Barn in Plainfield, Connecticut, which I know has been mentioned a couple of times on the Mack cast already, and they mentioned to me, they're like, "Hey, we're starting up a school." And I'm in the like mind is like, something, I love the business. I always wanted to try it out, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And if I fail, I fail. But I at least want to say at the end of the day, I tried.
You did,
I fulfilled a dream of mine to step into a ring and go from there. And I said to them, listen, if I suck, tell me. I'm not going to waste your time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste my time. And as I graduated from college in Massachusetts, I moved back down to Long Island, New York. So I was traveling every week from Long Island
all the way,
all to Plainfield, Connecticut to train
right,
with the Damned. And one of my coworkers, I was working at the Franklin Minnows store, a guy named Sean Purcell. He was only in the business for about 6 months, but we would drive together every week to the barn and train. Now, if you look at who I was trained with at that time, it's a who's who of
the
New England
names. Yeah,
You're talking about Chris Venom, who was the assistant trainer to the Damned. He was the first Damned trainee. You're talking about, you want to go to the NCW guys. You're talking about Rui. You're talking about Trips. You're talking about Kilgore. You're talking about Kale Murphy.
Yep.
You're talking about a young Kenny Phoenix. You're talking about Kid Crazy. You're talking about Brian Black came down, and like the main guys like Adam Booker would come down. A young Johnny Curtis would come down. Little known fact, Matt Storm actually gave him the name Johnny Curtis. which is funny because we always laughed about is that you know Vince owns the name now, brother.
Yeah.
But Matt Storm actually gave Kurt that name.
Did they cut Matt a check?
No, I'm sure they did. I'm sure. But it's always kind of funny of that nature. But it was like a who's who of New England now. A young Jason Blade, Mike Pava. Like these are all guys that went through the barn and the damn training camp, and are some of the top names of New England today.
Yeah.
So these are the people who I started out with, who are the guys that I travel and cut my teeth with, and that's basically how I got started in the business, was just with those guys.
Yeah.
And it all trickled from there.
Now those trainings, you were like straight wrestling training. You were just
it was straight wrestling training. We did calisthenics. We did
right.
We ran because many people have said during other Mack casts that the Loomis barn. It's a fucking barn.
Yeah, it's literally a barn.
Like I went to a show, an old ICCW show, which was run by guy Primetime Randy J, Bad Boy Billy Black, a guy named Kodiak, right on Davey Loomis's backyard.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was going to a show there, but I got lost, just like we did today, at Rick.
Yeah, just
way to go,
wandering
Nate
around.
Chris. Hey, stop turning around. In a little inside joke, he's laughing. And I once stopped at a gas station and asked, "Hey, do you know where there's wrestling around here?" And they looked at me. I'm like,
"What are you talking about?"
Exactly. And I'm like, "Well, it's also in some barn." They're like, "Oh yeah, that's at the Loomis." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
So they know.
They did know, but they, like I said, wrestling. And everybody's like, "Look at me!" Like it's a little hodunk town in the middle of nowhere. If you've ever been through Plainville, it really is. I mean, you're dodging horse shit to get to get into the barn. And no heat. It's dingy. It's done. But the thing is,
it's wrestling.
It's wrestling.
Yeah.
It gave you an appreciation to get downright and literally dirty and learn your craft. I mean, back then, high flying Chris Hamrick, his mother lived down the street from the barn.
Yep.
And he would actually come in and sit in on the trainings with the Damned, give us tips. And he was very much involved in the New England scene back in the early 2000s as well.
Like right after ECW closed.
Right,
because
he was living up there.
He was around here a lot.
So he came over there, and I know Chris Venom used to travel with him all the time, and you would see his name all around New England area because his mom lived down the street.
Yeah.
So I'll never claim that I was ever trained by Hamrick, but
Hamrick
was there.
Yeah.
He had a hand in helping the Damned when they first got started with their school and everything. So that's basically the story of how I got started in the business.
Now, how long did you actually step in and train to be a wrestler at that school?
I would say I had my first show a year later.
Oh, so you actually did a show?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
My first show, I was initially, I believe, going to be the ring announcer for ICCW.
I see.
And my first real wrestling show was actually up in Maine, up at EWA, back when they used to run the Stephen Street Armory, before they moved to Western Mass Western Mass, sorry. Your blue mask is blinding me here, brother.
Oh, sorry, dude.
I said mask, but it was run by Sky King and Steve Ramsey, and EWA back then, I would have to say, and something Matt Storm said, it had the following back there of a New England version of ECW, because they were consistently drawing 300 to 400 people a show. And this is when I was breaking in, and the Damned were their tag champs. EOS was up there. Rick Fuller was a regular. You're talking about Adam Booker when he first started. He was part of a team called, I believe, the Shooters with Aaron Morrison. Chris Venom was up there, and I got brought in. I gave them a list of 2 different characters that I portrayed as a manager. I realized halfway through my training that my knees were shot from amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
Now, I'm 5'7". I'm not going to be doing flippy doos. Sorry, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I was always a fan of managers like J.J. Dillon and Jim Cornette, and I still think the most underrated manager of all time, the Grand Wizard. And I started training to be a manager, but like Rich Bass said, if you're trained to be a referee, train to be a wrestler. If you're trained to be a manager, train to be a wrestler, because you're going to have to take those bumps. In this day and age, and even back then, if you were able to bump as a manager, that was half the battle right there, because you wanted to be that Weasley fucker on the outside that finally gets the gimmick at the end of the day.
Now, how long were you in the wrestling training school before you knew what mold you fitted into?
Well, the funny thing is that when I was traveling with the Damned, I was their young boy. So I would carry their bags.
Yeah.
I was trained old school. You carry your trainer's bags when you go to the ring. I mean, I'll give people who go to like Brickhouse Baker's training. I mean, years ago I remember seeing Shady Shay in a PLW locker room tying Brickhouse's
Baker's boots. Yeah.
But that's respect. And that's something that's missing in the business is still respect for the people who broke you into this business. And so I would carry the Damned's bags. I drove up from New York to go up to Maine to drive the Damned from Providence, not receiving anything, just to pay my dues and help with the ring.
Right.
That's what I did. I killed a car, just pure mileage
just
alone.
Just going back and forth.
Just going back and forth and doing that. And the funny thing is that everybody knew that I was I was one of the Damned's boys.
Yeah.
I was training with the Damned. I traveled, and everybody said, "Oh, he's a New England boy." I lived on Long Island, New York.
Yeah, not quite New England.
So it's not quite New England. I really did hit the New York tri-state area until way after my 5 years in the business. I was still a New England boy. And even when I was down there, I was still known as a New England boy.
Yeah.
So one time, I guess the Dam was trying to find a way to get me into EWA because I was getting ready to debut for NCW.
Yep.
I'll say this, and I said this to several people before. Your rite of passage in New England is working for JC Marks and NCW.
Yep.
I don't care how far you go in this business. If you were in New England, you started sometime with NCW.
The first time I met JC Marks was when he was selling RF Video VHS tapes in the Emerald Square Mall at the RF Video stand, man.
I was part of NCW at that time when he was there because we always go to visit him. When we were driving around and going. The Dam used to go to a place called Panda Express down the street from the Emerald Square Mall.
Yep.
And we'd always go stop and see JC and find out what tapes were coming out for RF Video and everything of that nature. So that's kind of cool.
That when I was younger, I loved that place so much.
Yeah, of course.
I was just like, I'd go to the mall and I'd just be like, I'm going to stand here for 2 hours talking to this guy about wrestling.
Of course, they had a video camera, a video screen right there,
just
so you were watching
play
shoots
whatever
and
you
watching
wanted.
whatever all the time. So it was great. So I had a meeting one of the times I was up in Maine with Scott King. And I gave him a list of 2 different characters, one of which was Dean Ripley, which was the one I mostly portrayed around the New England area. Yeah. The one I would probably say I'm most known for. But they took a liking to a character named Donnie Marine, which was a gay gimmick.
Yeah.
Back then, when they were doing that, that's when around the time when PWF Universal started, and Rob Feinstein was running a character there.
The fun athletic guy. And he actually managed Gino. Yep.
With a guy named JD Powers. They were a tag team, and they came out to What Is Love from Night at the Roxbury, so they would do the whole head gimmick and all that.
I love the head bob from that.
But it was basically a rip on the fun athletic guy.
Yeah.
So, it's a whole homosexual gimmick that they loved. They said, that's controversial. It was great. It was exactly they didn't want Ripley because it was too much like, the high class, high sophisticated. They already had that, so they were looking for something new while they were doing that. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And they brought me in with Tim Kilgore and Cale Murphy. And the way that we set up the team is that every time they came out, they were someone else.
Yeah.
They were announcers themselves, but the first show came out dressed as the Damned.
Okay.
So they came out with the makeup, the full gear, the whole 9 yards, and we actually worked the Damned. One time they came out, Kilgore came out as the Timmy Taker and came out dressed like the Undertaker. One time Murphy came out as Triple H with a leather vest and the jean jacket and finished the match with pedigree. So it was just glorified jobbers, but we were a comedy act.
Right, having fun, though, while you were doing it.
Well, the thing is, at the time, we bitched.
Yeah.
Because
now looking back at it, I'm sure you're like,
looking back at it,
we should have just did it times 10.
The funny thing is that when my fiance hears about it, she's like, I can't believe you play that faggot. I can't believe you play that faggot. And I said to her, I was like, honey, it was my way into the business. I did it. You did the 69 spot. You did the grab ass spot. as a warm up, we did from Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. We did the lemon face, lion face. Yeah, exactly. We actually did that in the middle of the ring one time. I actually got a pop from some people who were
the Kevin Smith fans in the crowd,
which are most wrestling fans in general anyway.
That's true. The two genres seem to overlap with each other.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, in retrospect, it was a great time. It was a great time to play that gimmick because it was different. But we bitched because we're like, something. They're like, we want to be taken seriously because we can actually go out and work.
Right.
Josh Shea was one of the guys who was one of the bookers there, and he saw Kilgore and Murphy tear it up at an NCW show, and they wanted to show what they do. See, because they didn't look like quintessential wrestlers at that time per se. I mean, Kilgore never had a huge, great build, but his psychology and the way he worked was actually pretty damn good.
Right.
Murphy actually had a build to him, and he actually looked like a wrestler. But they saddled us with this gimmick. All right, you make the best out of it. What you have, we might have bitched, but we took the booking. And at the end of the day, it's funny how people bitch about where they are in the business, where they are on the card, where is that. 5 years from now, you're going to say, something? I had something good there.
Right,
holy shit, why the fuck did I not appreciate it? That's the nature of the wrestling business, but any nature of any business in that is, we really had it good. And a spot was a spot. Starting off in the business and playing to 300, 400 people was pretty damn good.
That's a good way to start,
That's a great way to start. And, I drove 300, 400 miles for a $10 payday and had to get a manager's license up and make it was regulated back then.
Yeah, it was...
So, to me, in retrospect, it was great. It was so much fun, but I didn't finish my, that character or where I wanted to. We had this really great idea of there was a character up there, I forgot her name, but she looked like Mimi from the Drew Carey show. And she was dressed like her, makeup to the nines. And we were going to do this whole elaborate gimmick where she fell in love with me, but I was gay.
Right.
But she was being persistent to finally to the point where
she turned you.
She turned me straight. And then when finally I was going to profess my love for her, and then she was going to admit she's a lesbian. So it was going to be a great controversy and everything like that. But unfortunately, in the midst of all of that, my tenure was ended with it. They told me that they're canceling the gimmick. I'm no longer going to be needed.
What was the deal there? They just felt you were going too far?
No, actually, they actually came up to me at a UWF show.
Okay.
Which was Bobby Cruz and Gino's promotion. And Scott King pulled me aside and said, at that show, I just went up to the show to see the show.
Is this first UWF or like their second run when they were working with Top Rope?
This is the first UWF. I have plenty of stories about that too.
The weird Top Rope connection stuff?
All the above.
Okay, excellent.
It's, funny enough, it's all connected and you will not even realize how connected it is. They say wrestling is incestuous. Oh, yeah. Wrestling's incestuous. If you've not fucked one person that's fucked somebody else in the business or done business that's somewhat connected on the other side of the fucking country, yeah, that's a wrestling business. Sorry, it's a true story. But Scott King came up to me at the UWF show. I had driven up with the SAT, actually. And he pulled me aside and said, we're canceling the gimmick. We don't have anything more for you. And at that time, I was 2 years in the business. I was bullshit. Yeah, I was kind of like, dude, you can call me. You can AIM me. There's ways to get a hold of me where I'm at someone else's show and you're telling me that I'm no longer booked. Later on, I'm like, all right, well, okay, he told me in person. I respect you for that. But at the time, I'm like, dude, really? It's like, what if I show up for a show? I mean, are you going to contact the damned and have my trainers tell me that I'm not booked anymore? But now I'm like, enough time has passed. I'm like, you did me a favor.
Do you remember your last appearance as a gay?
Well, actually, no. It was actually one of the last shows they had up in Maine before they took a little hiatus and Heresy and Maverick Wild took over. Gino actually started being booked up there with Bobby Cruz because they used to travel everywhere together. And it's funny because when I first started getting booked there, Gino was shocked because he said he was trying to get booked there for a long time. And, I'm very respectful of Gino, who's been around for a number of years before I even came in. And I was like, yeah, I'm surprised you haven't been up here either. But once they started coming in, that was towards the end of Murphy got tired of playing the gimmick. He quit. Kilgore was bitchy enough to the point where he didn't want to be there anymore, and they really didn't have any use for me. So, okay, I understand that, and they didn't want to transfer me to the Dean Ripley character because everybody knew me at that time as the gay guy. Yeah. So I was like, all right, sucks, but at the time I learned so much just being in the locker room. I mean, just to tell you a little bit, I'm sure you've heard what the ribber Johnny Curtis was when he was a kid. He ribbed the fuck out of everybody. My first show, Larry Huntley decided to moon everybody in the locker room. Yeah. Curtis took...
Sounds like Larry.
Yeah, Curtis took a 2-liter bottle of orange soda and dumped it down his crack.
Nice.
This is Curtis in fucking high school. Like, he's ribbing them.
That's one sticky ass.
Yeah, exactly. And another story, that same show was, it was my first show ever. Of course, Matt Storm is a notorious ribber, loved to rib as well. I had a mesh shirt on because I was going to fly. I had leather pants on. I had sequins.
Nice.
I had nared my back the night before my first show because I didn't want to have... I wanted to have the chest hair hanging out of the mesh, but not the back. So I was nervous. I was going through my whole shtick and all that. And Matt came over and, started, just like, hey, calm down, brother. Rub my shoulders a little bit. Give me a pep talk or anything like that. Unbeknownst to me, he had hot stuff on his hands. So I go out into the fucking armory, and there's the heating lamps and everything of that nature. And all of a sudden, it's getting literally... The fag's getting flaming here, like literally. And I'm like, oh my God. And I know they're laughing their asses off. And when the dam finally came out to, work Murphy and Kilgore, they're smirking at me. Mad Dog had his mask on, so he's laughing as I'm walking by him, and Draven's laughing. And I'm just like, oh, you guys are assholes. But the other joke is that I had said I was so excited because my mother actually bought me a gear bag. So I was like, that was kind of cool. And I was like, yeah, it's waterproof. Curtis in the back's like, oh yeah, it's waterproof, huh? He dumped a big gallon of water in my gear bag and put it on top of a locker and zipped it up. So after my match, I'm on flames, I'm like, okay, it was good job, everybody high five, good job, brother. I pulled down the bag, unzipped it, whoosh. So freaking Johnny Curtis gets me there with that as well. So it's like, I can't say enough about that kid, and we'll talk more about him a little later when we get into PWO stuff, but you saw something in him back then, and even when he was Portuguese Sun Dragon for Yankee Pro and Suncoast, you saw the kid had something. But it was just a fun time to break into the business. I mean, it was right as ECW was closing up. It was right at the brand extension for WWE, and the indies were exposed. The opportunities for people to get WWE work. It's right before the ROH boom. There's just so much availability, and so many veterans on the circuit who have been televised with ECW were working the indies again. So it was absolutely awesome that we were, that I felt like I hit the jackpot. Like, I'm coming in at the right time to be getting involved in the business as a manager, and eventually getting involved as a promoter as well. I mean, it was just pretty awesome. I mean, and I can't say enough about those EWA days because it was just pure fun. And like I said, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but looking back, I could have done a lot more with that gay gimmick. It really could have.
It comes back around.
It comes back around. Well, my whole philosophy on that was I had a motto which was "Buy now, gay later." Yeah. So it was kind of like I was trying to work with that, and how flamboyant I could actually make this gimmick. It was fun because it was an actual gimmick, and I credit Rob Feinstein for that. I'll be the first person to say I ripped up his fag gimmick, because that's exactly what it was. Because I was exposed to that. I was not the fag part, but the gimmick in itself. I like Rob a lot. He's an old friend of mine. No love.
So there was no method acting going on.
No method acting. I didn't try it out just for the sake of it. I didn't say I was 18, but really I was 16. What? Too soon? I can never tell. But it was a gimmick. And the thing is that I even say to everybody, if you're going to be a manager, have a gimmick. Walking out of that curtain, the first 5 seconds of walking out that curtain, if they don't know what your gimmick is, you're dead. You're dead in the water. The crowd's going to boo you, or they're going to be sitting on their hands. They'll be silent. Exactly. So you got to have something that's going to set you apart, and the reason why people want to hate you. There's a reason why Sean Gorman, who I broke into business with at the time, he doesn't need music. He doesn't need a wrestler. He can walk out into a crowd and get booed out of the fucking building. Gorman is like that. These days, I mean, the manager I like that I had a small part in his training is Adam Barasano. He was the Rock God Brett Adams for the old NCW days. It was a gimmick. The Rock God gimmick was over huge in the Quincy days. But being a manager, you got to have that spark. You got to have that something that's going to get you over, but not take away from people you're with, because there's so many managers who steal the heat from their wrestlers.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about it being the wrestling boom period time.
Yeah.
This is like 2002, 2001, 2002. Yeah. Regularly drawing shows of like hundreds plus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think that it was you guys were drawing, everybody was drawing that amount, like you said, because it was a boom period? Or was the product better back then? Or like,
it was right. The thing is, it was after the whole NWO phase. So wrestling was going through its the tail end of its last big boom.
Yep.
In mainstream wrestling. So fans were latched on at that time. EWA also had a little bit of a buzz going on because they were part of the MTV True Life show, where they were trying to do
Tony Atlas
with the telephone,
right? Yeah,
and the whole deal. So it was right after that. So they were getting the buzz.
Yep.
And they used it, which rightfully should. So
yeah,
you're on a show like that, you should absolutely do that.
The same thing TRP did eventually with the True Life with the Aldens.
The Aldens. But I mean, I never met the Aldens. I had nothing bad to say, but they used that to their advantage, and they try to leverage that.
Still,
But they still try to leverage that. And
it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, how many people remember that show? I'm shoot honest. Like, how many people remember
specifically that wrestling episode?
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, how many people remember that episode?
Exactly, that episode. Let alone anything of that nature. I mean,
remember it.
Yeah,
but
specifically,
if you're in the business, you remember
exactly.
that. But if you're a casual wrestling fan,
you
don't
have no
remember
idea.
I mean, how many people were really allowed to watch, not necessarily wrestling, but also watch MTV in the reality series back then at their ages?
And that's the market you're trying to draw to in a wrestling show. It's kid age.
Exactly. I mean, my philosophy on wrestling promoting and booking is cater to the lowest common denominator.
Right.
To the kids. Because if you go too crazy in your storylines,
it's hard for the little kid to follow.
Hard for anybody to follow.
Yeah.
That's why I love the 70s and 80s so much, because it was black and white.
Good guy, bad guy.
Good guy, bad guy. But even, when you were able to see Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was the first quintessential tweener.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I hate that term, but
what it was.
What it was is the fact that he didn't change who he was. He just changed who he wrestled against.
Right,
his gimmick was the same throughout. He was
giving everybody the stutter. He didn't give a shit.
Exactly.
Who it was.
So, I mean, back then, even today, it's like you want to make sure the fans are going to come back. Or if you've been around for 13 years or 10 years like PWF was, if we allude to a storyline from 10 years ago, you might not have been there, but we'll give you enough back knowledge in just the match or in a promo that you'll know where you're going. Exactly. And that's one of the major problems of business is that everybody, one, thinks they're Vince McMahon, and two, everybody thinks they got the greatest idea that's going to change the industry. There's nothing new under the sun. Point blank.
It's all been done.
Straight shoot. It's always been done. It's how you take it and make it your own. I can point out times, sitting around the table for, when we get into the PWF stuff, that we took from the territory days, but we just made our own spin on it and made it our own. Right. It was fresh and new then, or it may not have been, but the fact of the matter is everything, the new is old, old is new, retro.
Right.
And now going back to your question, I think wrestling was towards the end of its high period from the NWO DX days, that it was still following over to the indies because people wanted to see wrestling.
Just any wrestling at all,
I can't afford a ticket to go see the WWF, so I'm going to go to an indie show.
Right.
People were drawing. Everybody was drawing at one point or another. I mean, even, 50, 75 people today would be like, oh, that's a great house. It's back then they're like, oh, we could do a little bit better, and then they would do better.
Right.
Grassroots marketing worked. Handing out flyers, postering, that all worked.
Little tickets for $2 off.
Exactly. Things of that nature.
Yeah.
It was still around the time of AOL. Everybody had GeoCities website. That's how you promote it.
Yeah.
You had the message boards. New England had the NEI back in the day, which was huge for us, and it was before the Burning Hammer.
Way before the Burning Hammer.
Way before, but it was, and more in depth too, because they actually came to shows a lot more, and they did interviews and Wrestler of the Month, and did a lot of great stuff with that. And then, but their downfall, I think, is they tried to be the DOI down in New England, down in the tri-state area, and trying to be controversial.
Yeah.
But they couldn't. And then the reason around that is, and I'll say this flat out, I'll get into the DOI a little later on, is New England is different from any other territory that you're going to come across in the entire United States. It's built upon the old school mentality, and you can thank Killer Kowalski and Tony Rumble and all those guys who paved the way for everything that everybody does today. It's all about respect. I do not even consider Connecticut to be part of New England because they are high spotty.
I was gonna say they got their own.
They're their own world. Once you pass the Westerly, Rhode Island border, it's a whole new ball game, and it's called wrestling psychology. There's no. I'm gonna take a shot right now. There's no psychology past Westerly, Connecticut, further south down, until you get to the Carolinas, and you're talking about old school grassroots wrestling. But that whole tri-state is all based upon the ECW based, which is also Jersey All Pro, Jersey Championship Wrestling, the guys who started the J Cup back in the day. Ring of Honor, which initially was known as Jersey All Pro Light because they stole half of their locker room from Jersey All Pro.
They really did.
But that's what Feinstein knew. It worked.
It worked.
And it was great. But back then, it was like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
The business was open, and you could learn so much just traveling and just being a fan of the business because you never knew who was going to come up into that. And when we start getting involved talking about PWF, there's a whole other element of the business that branched that affected the early days of Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
They're affected up here.
Yeah.
Even so, I talked to a lot of people from back in those days, and it's like, wow, how awesome it was, how much fun it was back then. Not to say it's not fun now,
right? No, not yet.
But it's so different. It's apples and oranges. It really is.
A lot of the talent, like you said, that was working up in this area has moved on to such bigger and better things from that time. Like
Absolutely.
you were saying, a lot of the ROH guys.
Yeah, ROH, the early days of TNA. WWE, it's a who's who of that, and it's very interesting just to see how things progress because I really feel that my story doesn't mirror theirs, but I'm always trailing behind in some part or another, but always my ears to the floor of what's going on in every aspect of the business.
Now, you said the EWA, they cut the gay gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
You're done. They don't need your services anymore.
Yep.
Where do you go from there?
Well, it was twofold. Going back to NCW, JC wanted to bring me in as the talented Dean Ripley gimmick, which was pretty much a rip from the movie, from the talented Mr. Ripley. I decided it had a nice ring to it for wrestling. And he brought me in, and my first show was managing Psycho Mike Osborne, Michael Sane. And, I was very influenced as a manager, especially with Dean Ripley, the character, on Shane McMahon. Rich put it over in his interview that, Shane McMahon's work, whether he's outside the ring or in the ring, he gave his heart and soul. Oh, yeah. Everybody looked forward to SummerSlam to his bumps. That was what Shane McMahon was known for. Think about the elbow he gave on Big Show from the top of the Tron, or how many times he kept on trying to go through the screen at King of the Ring. With Angle, exactly. It's like, he throw me again, fucking throw me again.
Painful,
It's like
that's what that was.
Exactly. And it was at a time where it was just like, that's why I started Dean Ripley back then. It was a huge angle, with Psycho Mike turned on him at the end of my first match. Ended up working a big program with Beast, with Dean, and turning him into a GQ type gimmick. So we worked into where I am making him more humane. So he was still doing the Beast gimmick, but I was trying to get him to speak words and wear actual clothes. And eventually, towards the end, he was GQ Beast, and he wore a tie to the ring and was a little bit more like humane back that time. So that's where Dean Ripley really got its start, was really with JC. I mean, like I said, anybody who's cut his teeth in New England has gone through JC Marks and has gone through NCWS. Sorry about that.
And how hard was it to make the transition between a gay manager and a more sophisticated manager who's trying to get other wrestlers to be more sophisticated?
My background was actually in theater management and directing. So not so difficult as one would seem, because I had a lot of character study and a lot of character work.
I see.
Which is lacking in wrestling as well. I know a lot of the people in the WWE, they try to get people to take acting lessons and be better at cutting a promo or giving a speech or anything of that, which is not too different in nature in that aspect. So I had the training, and I just modified my gear a little bit to whatever it was going to be. It was still some aspects of both characters were always either one, just because I like to have continuity in some ways. The fans who knew me as Dean Ripley, if they knew me as Diamond Marine at the time, they might have had a tough time. The only way it was different was the way I talked. Right. I had more of a lisp when I was the gay guy, as opposed to Dean Ripley. I just spoke naturally, of that nature. And that's actually sort of where I came into actually promoting as well. Back in the early 2000s, there was a wrestler by the name of Adam LeClaire who was working a small promotion called Sunfire Pro Wrestling. And a lot of the guys back then were working, it was one of the small promotions like Wayland City or, equivalent of today, just one spot, did the thing, happy being where they were, not trying to be anything more than they really are, type of promotion. And he was looking to do something a little bit different. So I was initially booked to manage on a show that they were doing in Clinton, Massachusetts, and they were looking to bring in Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And I think it was a deal with Shane Simons, with Carlos at that time, to bring him in. He had heard that he was going to be in the area, was looking for a show. It was right around the time that Chief Dave Fox had passed. Okay. So they were doing a benefit, a double shot, 1 day benefit for Dave Fox's family. All proceeds go there.
I see.
And they were going to bring in Neidhart. And Adam had actually said to me, he's like, hey, listen, I'm short finances. I want to bring him in because it will help to draw. He basically said to us, like, listen, you pay me X amount of dollars, you keep Polaroids, you keep full gate, for this benefit. But I'm a little short coming up, and it wasn't an absorbent amount of money for him to say to me, it's like, hey, listen, would you mind doing this? And I said to him, I was like, listen, I'm happy to do that, but if I'm going to be putting money in, I want part of the book.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you money without some say. I just am not going to do that. It's, otherwise you're just using me. I'm going to do business the right way. So he's like, okay. So we came up with a new name, which was Big East Wrestling, Big EW. And we had a whole day thing, and what we ended up doing at the end of the day was a tag match with me managing the Damned.
Okay, yep.
Against Shane Simons and Jim Neidhart.
Okay.
Which was great because one of my first shows as a manager, I'm managing against Neidhart. This is awesome.
Right, yeah.
And they came out to the old Heart Foundation music and everything. So, of course, you're doing your gimmick and you're doing your thing. But inside you're like, this is really cool. I loved it. Fucking
that
Jim
Marco moment. Right
exactly. When you hear
the
screech of the guitar and and all that. I mean, it's you have to be a fan. Like I said, you have to be a fan of the business to be in the business. And if you can have those moments where you're like, wow, I'm actually doing this, and oh my god, he's coming out, but just still in character, but in the back of your mind, like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing this for? Like seriously, what are you doing this for? And from there, I mean, it was Adam LeClaire, a young Dan Tanaka, and myself were the promoters for this company. So that's how I got started promoting.
Now your first gig promoting. Did you guys do well?
Drew very well. It was a great house. It was a great show. And I can attribute that to the fact that we had 900 on the bill. I'm not going to lie.
Right,
I mean,
of course.
He's not in the area often enough to be like, oh, he's worried.
Yeah, I'll see him next time.
I'll see him next time. I'll see him there.
Right.
No, it's fucking Jim Neinhardt. He's here. Go and do my thing. And we drew very well. And it was a good show. I mean, a lot of the usual suspects were on the show. The Kilgores, the Murphys, Triplelicious, a young George Carroll under the hood as Tiger Khan. Hopefully I didn't expose that, but I think most people know that George.
At this point, yeah.
I think most people know that George was Tiger Khan. The Damned, Kid Crazy, all it was a great group of people for that particular show. So that's how I pretty much became a promoter. I was still managing. I was still trying to get my name out there.
Right, yeah.
But that's how I started promoting. Was that?
Now, how long did you promote for?
I think I was with them for about 6 to 7 months before I started saying that this was going nowhere.
Right.
This promotion is going nowhere.
6, 7 months. How many shows would you say you guys?
I'd say about 4.
Okay.
But it was enough for me to see that it was a lot of underhanded work going behind the scenes. I mean, there's always politics. The more you go on, I could say
in anything.
Yeah. But in the wrestling business, it seems like it's tenfold.
Yeah.
So I was looking for my escape out of that promotion anyway, and I basically turned to Adam and Dan and said, listen, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like the way things are run here. We're not drawing in a certain way. I live down Long Island, so I can't come up here and promote at all. So when you guys say you shoot me a message saying, yeah, we're on a flyer and like that, one bar we're at and we have 10 people in the crowd, you didn't promote.
Right, yeah.
You did not promote. You cannot tell me you went out and handed out 300 flyers at Raw and we drew 10 people.
Right.
That just doesn't happen. I'm sorry. I don't care what promotion. Even today, you hand out 300 flyers, you're going to get hopefully at least 50 people from that.
Hopefully,
but still, 10 people? No. So I said I was done, and we had one of the gimmicks that I really liked was called the Brotherhood of the Damned, which was a stable built around the Damned.
Right.
I said, that's the only thing that I'm taking with me. You could have the name, Big East Wrestling. I'm gone. I have other things I want to work on and anything of that nature. And actually, it was at that time Mad Dog and Draven were talking about starting up PWF Northeast out of the old ICCW in Connecticut and asked me to come on board because I was one of their trainees. They trusted me, but also the fact that they need someone with a theatrical background that could help with the production value,
right, yeah,
the storyline writing, to help with just continuity and everything and telling the story, because that was something they were big on, especially being they're big fans of 70s and 80s style wrestling.
Right, they want that over the top character like that.
Well, exactly, but they I mean, people said this back in the day. The Damned, if they were in the mid South area back in the heyday, they would have been over huge because
right,
they're old school, rugged heels,
just running roughshod over everybody.
Exactly. Matt Storm used to wear the painted hockey mask with the chains with the leather jacket. Draven has almost crow-like but half face painted before
the
Stinger did it. And he carried a noose around his neck. So and then they came out Ozzy and Typo Negative, pictures of Magic Men. So it's like they love the character and the character-driven storylines, and that's what they wanted to bring in with the old PWF. So that's how I got involved with that.
What did you do working with them? Like you said, you just basically helped with the storylines and.
Initially, going back to the story with PWF is something that Gino brought about is that he was part of the old PWF Universal,
right,
which was the old Pennsylvania Wrestling Federation.
And that was Carino.
That was Carino.
And
at the tail
Feinstein
end,
have something to do with that too at some point?
As a character of the Fun Athletic guy,
right,
yes,
yeah.
but not
he
anything
any
more
actual
booking. But RF Video have full rights to shoot it,
right? Yeah,
the whole 9 yards. And I used to, being in New York, the Dan would travel to my place in New York, drop off their car, jump in my car, and we drive down to Pottstown, Pennsylvania,
right,
for their shows. And they were the inaugural PWF Universal Tag Team Champions.
As the Damned.
Carino put the straps on them right off the bat, first show. Mostly because they were branching also off a company called IWA, not the Mid-South that Ian Rotten was involved in,
yeah.
but another IWA that was in Pennsylvania, and the Damned were the Tag Team Champions there. So I would travel with them, and it was right at the time when ECW was closing. So, we'd go there, and you had Simon Diamond showing up. You had Carino, Jack Victory.
Yeah, those shows were stacked back then, especially at
ridiculously stacked. Louis Dangerously, Mikey Whipwreck, and it was like at the beginning when the SAT first started coming around.
Yeah, Red too, right?
Red was part of that because they were Maximo cousins because Red's actually legit shoot.
Yeah.
Joel and Jose's cousin, and Will now because Jose retired. So, it was a who's who of the wrestling business. Sandman. It was like everybody who went on to ROH or the WWE was part of this. ROH was not around at this time. It was still a thought in Feinstein's head. So, I was traveling down there with the Damned, with Gino. Eventually with a guy named Guillotino Grand, who was big in the New York scene, their old manager, DeMonica, and eventually Bobby Cruz became the announcer there because of Gino and coming up with, with Gino up here when Carino would come up to New England and do his stuff with Top Rope or whatever.
Right,
Bobby Cruz was involved with the booking back then. I believe, with the whole Top Rope crew when it was still South Coast and
the YPW
Yankee. Yeah. So and it was great because you had Chris Daniels, you had Chris Hero when he first started, Samoa Joe, great Samoa Joe story. The Northeast guys when we first got started would go down every show. We would work crew for Universal.
Yeah.
And it was back in the time when Chris Venom looked like a young Samoa Joe. Even though the Venom is actually older and had been in the business longer than Joe, you look at Venom and you look at Joe, it's two different sides by a lot.
Right, yeah.
But Joe picked up Venom on his lap and said, "Son, I'm sorry that I had to leave your mom when you were younger." It was just funny because he was big into the Taz look. He had the tassels, he was the Shane Douglas look. But it was when Joe was getting big, so it was kind of funny just seeing the two.
Yeah, the contrast.
But it was great, because I got to see Masato Tanaka and Otani when they came over for their tour. I wasn't there for that show, but Hashimoto was on a PWF show.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. It's just like it was at that time when the indies were just about to boom, and anybody was on Jersey All Pro, PWF, Universal shows. So when the Damned, who were the two-time tag team champions, they were looking to expand and to make like an NWA type territory.
Right, yeah.
They already had Mid-South, which was down in Tennessee. So Matt and Vinny said to Carino, I was like, we have the book up in New England. Why don't we do this? So they got the okay, and we finally did the whole turn of turning ICCW into PWF Northeast. Which we had this elaborate tournament for our new champion, which we had, Brian Black, who went on to be Palmer Cannon for a very short time in the WWE. Johnny Curtis, Kenny Dykstra, whole plethora of people from New England who went on to names just as part of our inaugural crew, which was pretty awesome at that day.
Now, with all these names, how do you know when your card is finished? How do you know that that's the card that you want as a booker?
It really depends upon what the stories that we're trying to tell. I mean,
we're trying to tell, which is very important.
Yeah, we're trying to tell. If I was saying to a booker today, I mean, towards the end of PWF, I was not the booker. It was Bass and Matt Storm. I mean, I chime in where I felt I could chime in, but for the most part, it was, them. We were very high storyline driven to the point where every match at one point or another was part of a larger storyline, and everything is intertwined. So when one storyline ended,
so it's pretty much months of building up.
Exactly, but we were, our writing style was very much month to month anyway. So it was like, okay, well, we did this last month, so where could we go? As opposed to, all right, I'm going to book 6 months out right now. How do we want to see a progression? And I would recommend to any booker these days, have maybe 1 to 2 storylines going and have rest as filler matches, just because those filler matches, you never know, can be absolutely fantastic and don't need to have a storyline because they stand alone on its own. But in this day and age, like I said, play lowest common denominator, plan it that everybody has ADD. Like literally. That if you're going to wind them up with too many storylines, they're going to be looking at something else. And they're going to be bored. And then we just, you'll be thinking, overthinking, and there to suspend reality. Just put on a good show, have a storyline here and there, but have a show for the sake of having a show. You know what I'm saying with that?
Have you ever bumped into 2 guys where you thought that they would have a good match, but when it came down to it, they just weren't interested in working each other at all?
Not outward appearances. I mean, I would say that not really anybody that would say that I won't work this guy, fuck this guy. I mean, outwardly, because they wouldn't be booked with us if they had any sort of real heat per se. I mean, it was the second show in when we brought in Kyle Storm, and everybody thought there was a shitload of heat, which there was between Matt and Kyle. They broke in together. There was 5 years that Matt and Kyle could not be in the same room with each other. And people, knew about these things. They just could not stand each other. These were guys who were best friends in high school. They came into the business together and all of a sudden had this huge heat. But in PWF, we did a work shoot where Kyle was a plant in the crowd. And the Damned went after Tommy Knoxville, who is now working in the shoot name of Mike McCarthy, who was Kyle's prize student, and that's legit shoot. Mike was trained by Kyle and TJ Richter. And he went out and cut this scathing promo, saying that, you're saying everybody's going to kick my ass, Kyle Storm this, Kyle Storm that, Matty or Tubby or whatever the fuck you're, I'm elaborating on that. I drop F-bombs like it's no one's business.
That's quite okay on the Mack.
No, I'm just saying.
No limitations here.
Brought out Matt, and up until that point, literally, not only that no one really knew that they were actually talking again, but they had physically, even as when they were together, had never locked horns. So they finally had a scuffle, and there was only 5 of us in the locker room who knew that Kyle was in the crowd. So even Gino, who worked our show that night, and he's like, "Oh shit, Kyle's in the crowd. Oh fuck," because he knew about the heat between Matt and Kyle. We didn't even let Gino in on that. At the end, Kyle's in the locker room, high-fiving everybody, and it was like, "Oh, you sons of bitches!" Okay, we worked the boys, but it's like. It was one of those times where we had to, in order to get this storyline across, that also letting everybody know Matt and Kyle are friends again.
Right, yeah.
But also we eventually bring back the Brotherhood of the Damned, which I spoke about at BEW. It was Kyle, Knoxville, and the Damned as one cohesive unit.
Yeah.
And they were running Rampage, and we did almost like a cross promotion with Universal, because every time Rob Dimension, who is Steve Corino's partner, would come up, they were always working against him.
Right, yeah.
As the catalyst, saying, we're on this show. You might be the PWF overall president, the Jack Tunney, if you will.
Yeah.
But, we're doing that sort of deal. So it was kind of interesting. It was a lot of, fun as far as storyline progression. But we try to incorporate as much as possible. I wouldn't say that there was so much as heat with people, because if there was really so much heat with somebody, we wouldn't book them.
Yeah.
If there was any issues in the locker room, we tried to squash it, and if we were not able to squash it, back in the day, we kind of did play the politics and said, well, who has the biggest upside?
Right.
We're going to do
that.
Hate to do that, and being not only green to the business, but green as a promoter. I hated being a bad guy.
Right.
Just because I try to be a nice guy. If anything that you might hear about me in the business is, I always try to be a gentleman. I always try to be a nice guy, and I might be naive, and a lot of people might try to work me in a lot of aspects. But one thing everybody can say is that I had always a friendly disposition. I was always nice to everybody.
Right.
I really didn't have too much heat with anybody because I didn't want to have that heat on me.
Right.
Later in the business, you realize it's
screw it.
unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. But at that time, it was very difficult, especially being so green in the business to be a booker. Especially, back in the day, you were looking at that time, Chaotic was new, NECW was new. The only real continuity going was Yankee and South Coast. So you got these companies that are coming out and people are getting buzz, places to work because they want to get their names out there.
Right.
They want to start doing stuff, and they want to start doing different things. And it was just interesting. But it was also interesting because I was still managing.
Right. Yeah.
And I never, and this we'll go into the UWF stuff later on when before the UWF merger with the Top Rope group.
Yep.
I never worked for South Coast Yankee, which a lot of people thought was shocking because just like NCW, you went through
one of the places.
You worked through Eugenio. You worked with Steve Ricard. But at that time, the Damned had heat with Ricard.
Yeah.
Wasn't exactly going to end up working there, even though my name would be brought up because I know, at one time, Kilgore and Venom were teaming. We did one spot for XWA back in the day.
Yep.
Actually, a lot of people talk about it because it was a time where Mike Pava and Kilgore were flying off a balcony in the opening match of a show. I was managing Kilgore and Venom at that time. They're like, this is great. Let's go on tour. But it was the time when they were starting to work with Slam Tech with Bob.
Yep.
I was still very much loyal to the Damned. I was not really going to go anywhere else. I was happy where it was. So I really didn't look for outside bookings, but I didn't even try. But I was always known as I was a Damned's boy.
Yeah.
So if they had heat with somebody, I wasn't going to piss them off. I wasn't going to go out for outside work. Even though I'm sure they would have said to me at the end of the day, you're the blessing.
Yeah, right.
Go and do it. But I was like, something, you guys have heat with them. I'm really not going to, I don't want to be put in a position where that's going to happen, So,
No.
So that was kind of interesting how with that managing with that aspect.
Yeah. Now, during your booking times, are there any stories that you came up with that stand out as something that you're real proud of?
There's a couple of one that I was really proud of. I'll be first to admit that there was a story that I booked in the tag team division because we were very big in trying to promote tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
It was before everybody stopped using tag teams, but tag team wrestling was still pretty hot. It was an angle we did where initially I was the ring announcer for PWF.
Yep.
As Dean Ripley, and eventually Kenny Phoenix teamed up with Kenny Dykstra from WWE, teamed up with Johnny Curtis.
Yep.
And they became later known as Talent Exchange because they joined up with me as a talent to Dean Ripley. We actually traveled down to Georgia to NWA Wildside for Bill Behrens to do the title change there.
Yeah.
We worked out a deal with Behrens on a Wildside taping to do a PWF Northeast tag team title match on their television show.
Yeah.
Which is great because it gave us exposure. The titles were being defended down in Georgia.
Right.
Which they had already been defended actually at PWF Universal, where Jason Blade and Mike Pava beat Kid Crazy and Frankie Amardello at a Universal show in Potsdam, Pennsylvania for the tag titles. So we were already starting to get recognized up and down the East Coast as a New England company, which is great. So we went down to Georgia, we did that, and the finish of the match was I snuck into the ring. As I mentioned before, I was a big J.J. Dillon fan, so my gimmick was the loaded boot. I had a gimmick boot.
Yeah.
So I slid into the ring right after the ref was pulled out after Fusion's finisher, and I blasted Blade with the belt and with the boot and put Kenny on top. That's how we won the tag titles. We won it down there.
Yeah.
So we did a storyline where the next day, PWF fired me. Because I'm a ring announcer. I wasn't supposed to be down in Georgia.
Yeah.
I happened to be in Georgia. I gave the titles to Curtis and to Kenny. So we did this whole thing that I showed up at the next show, and I was granted by Rob Dimension a manager's license if I was able to find somebody to manage.
Okay.
Well, I happened to find 2 people to manage, and we dubbed ourselves the Town Exchange.
Yeah,
it was Broadway Ken Phoenix and the premier player Johnny Curtis. And we did this whole program with Fusion, which was Pava and Blade,
Yep.
and a young Chris Camaro and Kim Mikaze, and they were Trilogy. They were originally a 3-team with Antonio Thomas because they were all part of the Kevin Landry crew. They were part of the Ring crew back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
But Antonio went on his own, did his singles career with us, and then he went on, did where he did, and went on to be a heartthrob.
Right. Yeah.
But
Mikaze signed up for a little while.
Exactly. And then Mikaze and Camaro were the tag team. So we did this really great program where eventually at the old WrestlePlex in, I believe it was in Pawtucket.
Okay, yeah.
Where NWA used to run. Where Showcase runs now. It's Attleboro. Sorry, Attleboro. Same thing. They're both on the same line, really. Attleboro, Pawtucket, you could say it's the same place anyway.
It's all pretty close to each
Yeah,
other.
pretty much. I think it's down the street from the old building anyway. Yeah. Blade had worked a show for some rinky-dink promotion the week before and worked Jose and Kevin Charisma and did dive to the outside and broke his collarbone. So we're like, shit, we're supposed to be we're getting ready for Genesis 2 at that time. So we're like, all right, well, Pava's going to need a partner, so let's have him go to the background partner. He grabs Mikaze.
Yeah.
Now, we already know that Trilogy and Fusion already have heat with the Town Exchange. Well, Fusion, Pava and Mikaze win the tag straps.
Okay, yeah.
Together. All right, but then who's the real tag team champion? Is it Fusion or is it Trilogy?
Right.
So they got into this whole huge scuffle about, who's there. So we came in from the outside of the ring and laid everybody to waste and basically said, possession's 9/10 of the law.
Took the tag belts.
We had the tag belts. We didn't sign on to, I basically said we didn't sign on to wrestle Pava and Mikaze. We signed on to wrestle Pava and Blade.
Right, yeah.
So they basically said to us, later on, all right, well, guess what? You guys are going to wrestle in a TLC match. No, we said it was going to be a ladder match at Genesis 2 in Worcester. And we actually had Jonah from Tough Enough in his first show a couple weeks after he lost Tough Enough on the show, which was kind of cool because he was actually behind the scenes training with Kyle Storm and Jason Rumble.
Right, yeah.
Which was kind of, cool with that. Like I said, you strike with the iron. The iron's hot. You go and you fight there. So we did this tag match, which was off the fucking hook.
Yeah.
I mean, his TLC match is still talked about to this day, and it was 2002, mind you. We're talking about Blade looked like he was going to go for the titles. It did a fucking moonsault to the outside of the ring.
Yeah.
Now, what was fucked up was, and you see clips of this all around the net, is that Blade hit his neck on the top rope of the ring, and it was roped, actual ropes.
Rope, yeah.
And Kenny jumped up at the last second, put his forearm up, and caught him. But Blade, a few seconds later, if Kenny didn't go up there, Jason Blade would have been dead.
Been done, yeah.
Hands down, like literally. So everybody's like, holy shit chance, the whole 9 yards. And there was another spot where Pava got whipped into the corner, but he didn't protect himself and got busted open hard way. And I remember because in the middle of the match, I got ejected from the ring because I started fighting with, back then, her name was Mercedes.
Yeah.
Who was dating both Blade and Pava at one
point or another.
One point or another in their careers. And I showed up I was up on the balcony of the building because I was waiting for the finish of the match. And I had, a couple of the workers up there, and they're like, Spencer, Pava's busted open hard way. End the match. I'm like, they're at the finish spot for my cue.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go. I was like, okay, he's got a charisma mask. Just give me 30 more seconds. That's all I want. Because the finish of the match is that everybody ended up diving into the ring, but the talent exchange was laid out in the ring unconscious.
Right
in the middle of the ring. So the referee, his real name is Mark Billy. He worked as Mark Billy, but we called him Phil Gates because he looked exactly like Bill Gates.
Yeah.
So we call him Phil. He actually got a chant for Bill Gates at one time. That's how we got the idea. His back was turned. He was looking at Trilogy and
everybody on the outside.
On the outside.
Dives,
I show up on the balcony, and I'm untying the rope to the belts.
And
I lowered it into the ring, which had never been done in wrestling. The only time, and this is legit, that anybody's ever done anything to the belts was when one time Shawn Michaels was reaching in a ladder match for the belts, and someone raised it.
Yeah, they never revealed it.
But they never revealed it.
Yeah.
Exactly. But no one had ever, in the business, cut the rope or anything of that. So I lowered it onto an unconscious talent exchange in the middle of the ring. So the referee turned around and said, "Oh shit, they got the belts. Ring the bell." Now we were expecting a bullshit chant, like what the fuck?
Right, yeah.
Like I was gonna run down. I had security, people who were working security by the staircase to guide
grab
me through.
The guys,
to guide me through the crowd, so I can get to the ring and wake them up and say, "Guys, you won. But we got a standing ovation.
People, they dug it.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So I start taking my bow and say, thank you, we got our respect, because the whole thing was like we were being disrespected by Universal, they wouldn't give us a shot. Respect by Northeast, they wouldn't give us a shot. We stole the TLC match from you guys. Fuck you guys. We're top heel, but now we're getting baby pop because we just, they call it a 5-star. I mean, Nate, who's with us today, he can attest. He has a DVD of that match, and he talks about that match as like it was crazy. And all of us guys still talk about that match like, holy crap, that's still a defining moment. When Kenny was part of the Spirit Squad, he'd come over to my house, and we would, Blade was having tryouts at WWE. We'd watch that match. We would still talk about that match because it's still a defining moment. You talk to. It's been 10 years later, and I did something on Facebook a while ago, and it was a 10-year anniversary for it. And I linked all the guys. We all are talking about, like, holy crap, because we remember all of us talking in the back about this match. And we're like, you know something? Fuck it. We're just going to go out there because how could you call a match with a ladder?
Right, yeah.
Like we knew the finish, and we knew that Blade was going to do a moonsault to the outside.
Yeah.
That was it. And we're like, yeah, why not? Because it was a great crowd. We were, drawing back then. It was awesome. So that was a storyline I was very happy about because it was something new that, like I said, different.
Like you said, how you do that. Done the belt deal.
And eventually, we had plans that we were going to outlaw the TLC matches for a while after that because it was like, how are we going to come from there? And we said, eventually we're going to have to do a repeat. So we're going to build the storyline. Yeah. But I knew that in the back of my mind, I'm going to have to go through a table. Because people are going to be pissed off with me from what I did last time. And we had this whole thing. We're going to eventually, I think we're going to push Trilogy over with Camaro and Mikaze over finally at the end. And, I was going to be like shackled to the ring post. And the key will come loose. I get that. I climb with the ladder, try to knock somebody off. I take the nasty plunge. They grab the belts. They get their revenge on me. We never really they got revenge on me in a battle royal. Like I got thrown into a battle royal as a member of the talent exchange. But it was anticlimactic of where it could have gone.
Right.
But unfortunately that was the nature of the beast. But that was still my favorite storyline that I had a hand in. And maybe it was a little bit selfish. I was involved in it. But it made for a good storyline just for the wrestling because, like I said, as a manager, I tried not to get involved. I mean, I bumped. I knew how to bump. I could take a flare bump from the top. I could do different things. But causing that sort of finish that was meant something for a manager to get involved as opposed to taking the heat from the...
Right.
Yeah, people hated me,
from them,
but they still got a 5-star match for the wrestlers.
Yeah.
So I really had nothing to do with anything except for the finish of that. So that was kind of cool. But... one story I actually wanted to bring up was, I tell the story a lot, is our trip down to Georgia for that. We were a caravan of cars from New York. We had everybody meet at my house in New York.
Yep.
And then the car in front of me was Pava Blade, a Mercedes. And my car was Brian Black, name dropping, but it's my shoe, so I don't give a fuck. Johnny Curtis, Quiet Storm, and Tanya Cornell. TC Tapes did all of our video stuff, so I asked Tanya, listen, we're doing an angle for our stuff. So could you tape it for our video? So we're not using the Wild Side taping and their commentary because they're not. We can always overdub our commentary. For
right.
it.
Yeah. You basically do whatever you want with it.
So we're driving the overnight. Kenny went down earlier, and we're driving in the middle of South Carolina or something, and all of a sudden, Blade and Pava start swerving in the road. We're like, what the fuck? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, we see this deer carcass going from the top of their car and splatter on my car. So we all pull over, and I see blood everywhere. And like, there's no damage to the car.
Right.
But there's blood, and we still talk about, like, we called them the Bambi killers for the longest time.
Yeah.
Because they drove right through, but my car took the brunt of the
residue.
All the residue of this freaking deer, which is pretty awesome.
Surprisingly, it didn't do damage to the car, because I know that deers can really mess up somebody's car.
Absolutely.
You could die from hitting a deer.
I mean, I hit a deer when I lived down in Pennsylvania, and, it broke my tail light, but it was still like, holy shit, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're doing the 17, 18-hour drive. I mean, God bless Johnny Curtis and Brian Black, because they drove from Maine, dropped their car off. The other guys drove from Rhode Island or Massachusetts, where they were, to my house in New York. And we still had a 17, 18-hour drive overnight to go, to drive to Wildside the next day in Georgia. So it was kind of crazy with that.
Now, how long did you spend in the first PWF kick?
I would say I was there up until just before they did Genesis 3, which is when they brought in Steamboat, Harley Race, and Les Thatcher.
Now, that's the show I believe Chris Pyro talks about. He had a singles match.
Steamboat came back another time. He came back because when he did the ROH stuff with Punk up in Boston.
Yep.
He did a seminar at the old Squared Circle Academy in Providence.
Yep.
Where Pyro was Kid Pyro, and that's where Brendan Webb did Creeper stuff.
Yeah.
And all that. But involved in there, I mean, like I said to you, it's like I was all about getting the PWF name out there.
Yeah.
Mostly because I felt, and this is not a shot on Carino or anything like that, I felt that Universal dropped the ball as far as getting everybody together. You had 2 territories to your home company, but you never brought them in at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
NWA always had the convention. People always talked about the old NWA conventions about, all titles were defended all around New England. Thanks to Tony Rumble, would bring people down. All that. Jay used to bring people down. Everybody and everything. So we ran a show in 2002 called Convergence at the Elks Lodge in Smithfield.
Okay.
Where we were bringing in people from PWF Mid-South from Tennessee, and which was like a guy named he was a guy named Kid Crazy, but he changed it to Loco because there was Kid Crazy up here. We had Jarrett, and Menace, who was a hooded wrestler from down there, and a guy named Robbie Race, who called himself the illegitimate grandson of Harley Race.
Okay.
I'm sure Harley would have been pissed if he knew about that. But no, just knowing Harley's temperament. And we had in the SAT, all 3. We had in Stryker. We had in Quiet Storm. So we had almost all the Universal titles going to be defended on this show. Not Universal. All the PWF titles
just
everywhere,
in general.
The Universal title was in a double Jeopardy match. For those who don't know, that was a match where there were 4 guys in a ring, 2 referees, a singles match happening at the same time.
Right. And then the 2 winners of each singles match would face each other.
Right, but it all happened at the same time.
Yeah.
So we had that. It was Kenny Phoenix, Adam Hasty, Quiet Storm, and Kale Murphy. Murphy was the junior heavyweight champion for Northeast, and Quiet Storm was the Universal junior heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
And we did for the Universal junior heavyweight title. So Quiet Storm went over on that. On Murphy, clean, but it was just to be a nod to our champion from there to, them defending their title, X, Y, and Z, and the other thing. Well, we knew there was going to be up Sheets Creek without a paddle because the guy, Menace, who's their heavyweight champion, was supposed to win the title from Robbie Race that night. He didn't come up. He said, I'm not taking the drive, whatever. All right, this not a big deal, whatever. So Tommy Knoxville stepped in and wrestled Robbie Race for the title, so we had the Mid-South heavyweight title defended there. Mid-South was getting ready to take a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, to take some time.
So I called their promoter and I said, hey, why don't we do this? Let's have your junior heavyweight champion come up and drop it to one of our guys. Have us defend your title for a little bit, so you keep your title going while you guys are revamping, and then we'll come down and do the solid for you guys and drop the title back down to your guys down in Tennessee, so that way your lineage keeps on going. I'm very big on history, and wrestling history and lineage and legacy and all that, of Universal and everything of that nature. And that leads into a lot of things going on with my career later on.
Right.
So we had Tim Kilgore win a match to face Loco for the junior heavyweight title. And he won. He won Mid-South junior heavyweight title. Great. Kilgore's up here. He's going to do that. We're going to do the gimmick for them in the next 2 weeks or so. I mean, sorry, 2 months or whatever, however long they're going to do that. And we ended up getting the call saying, all right, we're ready for you to come down. Now, like I said, Menace no-showed the first show. That was the first issue that we saw there.
Right.
Second thing is they forgot the junior heavyweight title. And I'm doing the air quotes for the match. So they said they were going to mail it up to me, next up to me, so we'll have it for our shows and all that. Of course, that never happened.
Right,
Whatever.
Right.
We still announced Kilgore as the Mid-South Junior Heavyweight Champion. No strap, whatever. We worked out the time that we're going to go down to Mid-South in Tennessee to do it, and it was another 17-hour drive, which I did with Kilgore and his current wife. And we went down there. We get there. We check into the hotel. Everything is cool. We get into the locker room. We shake hands with everybody. And one of the things I should have known that he said is like, listen, we're the kind of promotion, if the crowd's yelling boring, we're gonna send these two big guys out to the ring to end the match because we don't want boring chants in our company. We're just that way. And they're called like enforcers or whatever that nature in that. So basically they said to me, I said, can I cut a promo? Because even though I wasn't Kilgore's manager at the time, I was down there with him. So I was like, I'm getting on this show. I want to do something. So they said to me, you could say anything you want. You could say, Vince McMahon, suck my dick on the mic. We don't care. Okay, yeah, sure.
Tempting.
Yeah, you're giving me carte blanche on the mic here. Okay. So I open up the promo of welcome to PWF Mid-South, where the sisters are friendly and the sheep are scared. Yeah. And I think I said something along those lines that you said some fucking spick up to to our area, and what happened? He got his ass kicked. I knew Loco was in the crowd because he was retired from the business. I let him know, I was like, I'm gonna drop an S-bomb. I was like, they gave me carte blanche. He's like, I was like, I'm calling you a spec. He's like, that's fine, don't worry about it. I was like, all right, cool, no problem at all. Well, in the middle of the match, we didn't get a boring chant, but these two big fuckers come out of nowhere and attack Kilgore.
Yeah.
Now, you look at the video, depending on what angle it looks like a shoot, it looks like a work kick. No one will ever know. Because it depends on what angle the camera lives, but it clipped Kilgore in the nose. Yeah. And it broke Tim's nose. Now, back in the day, Tim was notorious for breaking his nose. He did a 450 splash, he broke his nose. He sneezed, he broke his fucking nose. I spoke to Tim about, I was going to mention this prior, but that was the way Tim was. He was almost like the Marsha. Oh, my nose. Why does this always happen to me, Tim Kilgore? He tried to crawl out of the ring to protect himself, and for me, I was not going to get in the ring with these two big fuckers. So he tried to crawl into the crowd. Well, they went out into the crowd after him, and I went, whoa. And I'm most of them like, guys, let's go to the finish. Let's go to the finish. He's bleeding everywhere.
Oh, jeez.
They grab Tim, throw him in the ring. Jason Extreme, who is their new guy, hits his finisher. 1, 2, 3, pin. Boom. All right, we go. Kilgore is fucking livid because his nose is broken. So he goes into the back.
He wasn't even aware that these guys were going to come out there.
They gave us the Iggy that this might happen if you get a boring chant, but didn't say exactly that this was actually going to happen. Well, it happened. Yeah. I should have seen the writing on the wall that they're telling me that this, but they did. Yeah, they wrote it beforehand. But that wasn't the finish. Yeah. They told the finish was the guy was going to hit his deal on Kilgore. 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay, cool, whatever. So Kilgore's flipping out, grabs his gear, doesn't even his gear bag doesn't change. The promoter pulls me aside. I'm very calm, cool, and collected because I knew I represented the territories.
Yeah.
I said to the guys, like, listen, I'm going to the emergency room. I know the deal was initially we put you guys up when you come up to us. You put us up on here. Tim's going to the emergency room. Can you throw us a couple of bucks? This kid just has his nose broken. He's like, well, I'll try to give you a call. Let me know how it goes. I'll give you a call later on when I do the gate. Typical indie promoter.
Yeah.
I'll give you a call later on.
I'm guessing you never got that call.
Never got the call. Never called me back or anything like that. Tim was, in the broken nose emergency room, still in his gear. Everybody's looking at him because for PWF, and typically he wore a tank top and amateur boots and tights. For PWF, he almost had like a Hardy type gimmick, which people would love, with pleather pants and a mesh shirt and actual boots. So he actually looked like more like a wrestler as opposed to what he wore everywhere else. So you're in an emergency room with wearing his gear. They never called, but the one thing he wanted me to say was he wanted me to thank his wife because he got laid because of his broken nose that night. I left the room for a while, but he actually wanted me to say that on this podcast. Thank his wife for allowing him to get laid, sympathy sex, because of that, for the broken nose. But
so it wasn't all bad.
No, it wasn't all bad. But when I got back, of course, I was screaming bloody fucking murder because I was like, these guys. Whether shot on Tim, he had broken nose. They didn't come and help us out with it. Now, rumor has it that, according to the video, which you can actually see, is during the match with Loco and Tim at our show when he dropped the strap to Tim. Tim did, as he took a bump, a Hardy sign as he was taking the bump because he was wearing his Hardy gear.
Yeah.
But they thought it was him giving the jerk-off sign, like, this guy's a fucking jerk-off.
Yeah.
So there was always the question, was that work or was it a shoot because of a jerk-off? And we're like, no, you can clearly see he's got the double barrels going out there.
Yeah.
He's not doing the jerk-off thing, which, okay, I could see where you're doing that. But
thanks to the hand.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we're screaming to Rob Dimension and Carino, take away their charter.
Right, yeah.
They fucked with us. They quit their charter. And they're like, well, we have to review the tapes. We have to do all this, that, and the other thing. And Tim didn't want to, didn't like that it was taking so long for them to come up with a decision.
Right.
So we agreed to part ways with him. Because he was not happy that he felt we were not doing everything we could for him. And I was like, it's not up to us. It's up to, it's not an open and closed case. Like the NWA, there was the people who ran the territories. We all had our own branches and we had our own storylines. They could pull the name from them at any particular time.
Right.
So several months later, Robbie Race and the promoter tried to call me for work, and even those two goons tried to call us for work. And we said, you guys handled it really piss poorly.
Yeah.
Our guy was in the hospital. Your guys were never in the hospital. You didn't call a checkup, and you had the balls to ask me for work? Go fuck yourself. So, that was just like... So then I had such a great idea to try to, help the business out there. It has such a bad reputation. You're going out of business for a while. Let us carry your belt for a while. You guys come back. We'll do the rub for you guys. Do the right thing. Do the right thing for the territories. But you guys know they had to ruin a good thing.
Plus, it would have been keeping their name alive too, because you're representing that belt. That's what it's about. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. So it didn't work out that way, and it sucks that it didn't work out that way. And it sucks that. I'm going to go on record until the Resurrection years, which is the last 4 years of PWF after the merger.
Yeah.
The other companies the other territories were really not recognized at all by the other companies.
Yeah.
And that pissed me off to no end because I was like, if you're having a territory, if we're a branch, recognize us. Really? Seriously, what do we have to do? I thought, traveling down, to Wildside for the tag titles and to Universal for the tag titles, or us agreeing to host everybody in a convention-style fashion and hold one of the titles would give something to us. Nothing. except for a blade for Tim Kilgore.
Yeah.
It sucked. I mean,
the hospital bill. Don't forget about
that.
that.
And a hospital bill. So it was kind of messed up, in that sort of scenario from there. But going into that, that whole thing with UWF was starting to get a little steam back in the day with Bobby Cruz and Gino, and they ran at Club Jokers. Yep. And I was managing a guy by the name of Chichi Cruz.
Okay, yeah.
Who was a Universal wrestler. And because of the connection with Corino, a lot of the Universal wrestlers were coming up there. Not coming to us in Northeast was always suspect.
Right. Yeah,
they were going to Bobby, weird. But they were not coming to the other PWF.
Right.
Okay, whatever. They had a Universal match there between the Damned and SAT, which they had some great ones back in Pottstown with the Backseat Boys with Trent Acid, God rest his soul, and Johnny Cashmere. Fantastic three-way dances and everything like that. So they did Damned SATs up here, which was great as well. But didn't have like the high flying that they were able to do. Like you couldn't do a Spanish flag because if you know Jokers, low ceiling and everything like that.
We went to a few of those shows as fans back then.
Well, one time I was managing Chichi Cruz. Is a really great story as Ripley, and his music is hitting, and I'm waiting for the time where Chichi wanted us to go through the curtain. Well, he turns to me. He's like, "Fucking go!" And he pushes me. But he pushes me off the stage.
Yeah.
I take the whole fucking entrance down with me. So there's Mad Dog, and there's one of the SAT working out their match.
Talking, yeah.
Sorry, I'm breaking kayfabe and everything, but, whatever now at this point. And all of a sudden, you see this pile of curtain, and I come popping out. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm in character the whole time. And I go in to the ring, and I reach out my hand. I was supposed to cut a promo, and Bobby Cruz was like, no fucking promo. I was supposed to they were supposed to do that gimmick. They were actually going to work it where I knocked down the curtain every single time.
Yeah, after that,
because it was a joke. It was a klutz. So my claim to fame in New England is I'm the guy who took down I was the shock master of New England.
Yeah.
I took down the entranceway. One time I think it was going to be like April Hunter and Mercedes supposed to be changing behind the women's locker room was going to be one time. I fell through the curtain. But
it must have been pretty funny when you pulled down the curtain accidentally the first time to see most of the boys just duck down and.
Well, it's just funny because I didn't know if everybody ducked down, but Mad Dog and Joel, working to go set the ring. They're fisted each other mid spot, working out in the back, and holy shit, fucking Spencer takes down the fucking ring, and that's what I'm so known about.
That must have been a fun
Shooter
night.
Still talks about that to this day. If you ask him about that story, and
yeah, Scotty used to film all those shows.
Yeah, exactly. He was actually involved with the book with them back in the day, and even when they did their stuff in Canton, most recently when they had that one show with Goldust, he was involved with that with Bobby.
Worked close with Bobby. Yeah.
And anyway, now next part I'm going to talk about with the UWF is always very suspect, and this is my opinion. This is no one else's. Why the Dam stopped being booked at Universal? It just got. No one knew why. Mad Dog got married, and they worked this whole program, a loser leaves 90 days match with the original Hit Squad.
Yeah.
We're talking about Moff and Monster Mack,
yeah.
which were huge on the East Coast back then. Fucking Jersey All-Pro, Ring of Honor. Obviously Moff's gone to make a huge name for himself as singles matches and whatnots, and Monster Mack was phenomenal in his own right.
Oh yeah, big dude.
But they did lose 90 days. And when they finally brought the Dam back, they came back with a new look, and they worked two guys named team from Chicago called Fire and Ice, who were the drizzling shits. Like they were fucking terrible, but they for the two matches that the Dam worked them because I'm putting Fire Ice on it.
Yeah.
So it was under at least my opinion that okay, the Dam were on the way out. This, like I said, this is my opinion. I don't really know the true story, but
right.
You're doing two-time tag team champions are doing the job twice on their return, and you're not booking them again. It's kind of suspect.
Right.
At the same time, they stopped being booked for UWF, for Bobby, which led to my conspiracy theory again. It's like, was Bobby behind this?
Right, yeah.
Because he was not booking them up there. They're no longer traveling down to Pennsylvania. There's something kind of fishy going on here. So I continue to be booked by UWF. And then they stopped using me for a while. Mostly because of the travel. It was my own doing. It was nothing, no heat whatsoever. But there was their first show at the PAL under the Eugenio banner of UWF. Bobby had called me on a Monday, said, "Hey, can you come Friday? I have a new up to Fall River because I have a spot for you that I think you'd be really good in. We're bringing up a lot of the Universal guys with the SAT, and I think the main event was Red versus Mikaze versus Blade. Now, if you know Mikaze back in the day, he was New England's Red."
Right, yeah.
Hands down. And he was known for being New England's version of Red.
Yeah.
He just did more psychology than Red, but he did all the same spots, styles
moves,
Red.
Yeah.
So you knew that they were going to bang up. And Jason Blade is a phenomenal worker in his own right. You knew the three of them were going to have a
crazy-ass
match. And they had Carino on there. They had the SAT. They had Stryker. They had Quiet Storm. And I used to travel with them because since I was down in New York, I just stop in Brooklyn, pick up the SAT and Stryker and all those guys.
Everybody hop in.
And Carter Brady, cart in my car. You know, I had Subaru Forester. Red was in the trunk with the gear because he could fit there. 3 in the back, Stryker, in the passenger seat. And Bobby's like, I want you to manage a PWF contingent. And he said, I want to do this as a peace offering to PWF. Going back into my conspiracy theory.
Right, that he had something.
That he had something to do with it. By saying to me that this was
I'm sorry kind of.
A peace offering, said, boy, aren't you a shitbag?
Yeah.
Going back to that thing, I still have never worked in the PAL, and I was given the opportunity finally by UWF.
Yep.
But I chose not to, and I said I had to work tonight, which was legit.
Right.
But I could have gotten out of work.
Right, of course, yeah.
Because of the way that Dan was being treated on multiple fronts.
Right.
Once again, loyal to a fault. I just believe in the old school mentality is you respect your trainer to the end. If your trainer has heat with somebody, you're not going to go do something, even though you talk to them if you're going to go work for someone they hate. But I was kind of mine. I'm not going to go. Why am I going to go work for somebody and do that? And he stopped using the dam. So I wasn't, as much as it might have been great for my career in hindsight, I was not going to make the drive up there and do that. So to this day, will I ever know if Bobby was behind that? No. Do I really care? Not really.
Yeah.
I still hear.
You got the questions.
Inklings, but always in my mind, was he behind the fact that Dan were not there, or was he? And obviously he didn't book it for UWF. But was that? It was too coincidental at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was really my involvement with UWF, and that connection with PWF and, that whole scenario.
So from there, you said you're back out, obviously you're out in New York. The PWF, you guys are separated from Carino.
At that time, Carino had stopped running.
Right.
We were the sole doing there. I had a huge falling out with the Storm Brothers, because I was an owner at that time. And a guy by the name of Nate Durrett, he worked under the name Mark Reality.
Yep.
Who he really only worked for us, but he was our answer to Rob Dimension.
Right. Yeah. He was like the
head figure, Jack Tunney. Yeah. I had a huge falling out to the point where it affected my friendship with the Storm Brothers. Now Matt, everybody knows me, knows Matt is one of my all-time best friends.
Right.
In and out of the business. My first wedding, Matt was my best man.
Yeah.
Now that I'm getting married again, Matt's actually one of my groomsmen.
Yeah.
With Bass. And still, he's my big brother. I never had a big brother. Him and Vinny, the Damned, were my mentors, my trainers, my everything, my big brothers.
Yeah.
So it was a very tough year for me because I was done. In my mind, it's like until I can clear stuff up with the Storm Brothers, I'm not doing anything in the business.
Yeah.
And I was living down in Pennsylvania at the time with my ex, and I had offers to go work X, Y, and Z there.
Yeah, just.
But out of respect for the Storm Brothers, I didn't work at all. I just didn't want to. I was just like, something. The town will be good. I was like, hopefully one day I'll be able to clear shit up with them. And the heat was stupid. It was completely my fault on that end. I'm not going to get into it, but I fully admit that I was immature. I was stupid.
Your reaction,
and it was no reason for that, and it was rough. It was a rough year for me, and I would still come up. I came up for that chance. The last thing I booked was talking to Les Thatcher about him, Steamboat, and Harley Race getting that ball rolling for them to do that for Genesis.
Yeah.
I got the initial contact started and the agreement set with them for X Men to do a training weekend session and then for them to be on the show.
Right.
I still came up to the show because I felt like that was my last baby. I want to be there. Steamboat was actually the special guest referee of an Iron Man match between Johnny Curtis and Kid Crazy for the PWF title.
Okay, yeah.
Harley Race managed TJ Richter, and Les Thatcher did a spot there. And it wasn't until about a year later, I was getting ready for my wedding. Kyle messaged me out of the blue on AIM. And I started talking to him and Matt again. I said, hey guys, why don't you just come down for a weekend in Pennsylvania and we'll hang out as friends, not even worry about the fucking business.
Right, yeah, just kind of.
We do our friendship. Because it was tough. I mean, I said this to Matt at Genesis, because we spoke on and off.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was mostly a lot of me saying, Matt, I fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I honestly said to him, I was like, I can live with the fact if I never talk to Kyle Storm again in my entire life. But you're my best friend.
Yeah.
I know you have heat with me. But please give me a chance to prove myself.
We need to be able
I'm
to,
sorry.
Yeah.
And eventually, it all worked out for best. Matt still was my best man at my wedding. Everything was great. This, that, and the other thing. And then I got approached to get into business with a wrestler in New Jersey by the name of Damian Dragon.
Okay.
He was a Johnny Rod's student, big name around the New York area. He actually was Matt Striker's WWE Matt Striker, not Unibrow.
Not the Brow.
Right. His first tag team partner, they were training partners, the whole 9 yards. Get involved in promoting with him. He was wanting to promote. And I said to him, fuck, why don't we open up PWF New Jersey?
Right, yeah.
So I got the okay to use the name. Because I still had money in the company. They never bought me out.
Right, yeah.
I was supposed to be bought out at the Heat. They were going to give me 75% of what I was initially put in.
Right.
And they basically, I never got paid. So they basically said, tell you what, you still want to be part of the PWF family, just run New Jersey.
Right.
Awesome, fantastic. So we did this whole thing with New Jersey. We brought up some wrestlers with Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah.
And Mikey actually worked Jose Perez up in Quincy at the Armory.
Okay.
Now, as a gift from me, I paid to have Tony Mamaluke come in. Besides Mikey Whipwreck, and Mamaluke and Mikaze had a barn burner.
Oh, I'm sure.
They fucking tore shit up. Now, CJ Mamaluke is a fucking ridiculous worker.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever see, I mean, not just the shit he did with the FBI, but his singles work.
Oh, yeah.
Like crazy. I mean, he was the flip guy. Guido was the guy who did all the technical stuff. He was a shooter.
Right.
But you always saw that Mamaluke was the guy who dove over the freaking barricades into the crowd, at the Hammerstein Ballroom and all that. But another two guys that came in worked under the name of Brett Matthews and Brian Myers, who later went on to be named Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins.
Okay.
They were Mikey Whipwreck boys. And they were slated to be the first PWF New Jersey Tag Team Champions.
Okay, yep.
Their match was against Guy Alexander.
Yep.
And Paul Lombardi, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
just funny that we were initially talking about Jared earlier in the evening. We called them the Long Island Blondes.
Yeah.
A complete ripoff of the Hollywood Blondes.
Of course,
but we were going to be the first people to turn them heel because they were huge baby faces for NYWC for Mikey. They actually dyed their hair blonde for us.
Yeah.
And in the inaugural PWF New Jersey event, it was them versus, it was supposed to be Trilogy, but Camaro didn't come in. And it was a wrestler by the name of Ken Scampy, who was part of Team Tremendous with Dan Barry, against Sick and Twisted, which was Matt Storm and Evan Six, which they ran up here. And we put over the Long Island Blondes as the first PWF New Jersey Tag Team Champions. So it's kind of funny how they're, initially in their start, before they went on to WWE, they were PWF Tag Team Champions. Kenny and Kurt were these Tag Team Champions. So, going to that thing, it's like, like I said, I'm a blip. But I've had my hand in things that have gone on to future people have gone on to future things in the industry.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun with that.
Well, you must think that you have a good eye for these guys if they're later on coming to get WWE contracts.
That's the one thing I'll say, and that's one thing I can always say about my managerial career. And people can call me a mark for myself or anything of that nature, but let's face it, the two guys that I managed Kenny and Johnny Curtis. They went on to contracts.
Well,
might not have had anything to do with me at all. It probably had nothing to do with me, but I can still be proud of that fact.
Oh, you definitely should be.
I mean, Kenny's still to this day one of my best friends in the world. Yeah. He is a JOP. Besides this other work that he does besides wrestling, he's also a full-time student at Nichols College on their football team. But he's marrying my wife and I, my fiance and I. So, I mean, Kenny and I have always had a very close to the point where like we're family. I was at his mom's wedding. I'm still friends with. For a short time, we brought in Mike Phoenix, which was his brother. They were together on the White Boy Challenge for Rodney Mack in Philadelphia.
Oh,
we were actually all down there for that.
Guessing he had no theme music.
Yeah.
The White Boy entrance.
The White Boy entrance, the whole yard, but it was the Fierce Boy brothers. It was great because because Kenny was this Aryan-looking kid, blonde hair, blue eyes, Luke Skywalker-looking Aryan, as they said in Chasing Amy, Aryan-looking motherfucker. Going back to that Kevin Smith stuff, and Kenny and I just always had cool. He got signed. He called me the day after. He was still in high school when he did that stuff. He got signed the day after he graduated, and he lied his whole time. He already worked television 5 times. Yeah, so you talk to Kenny. Kenny will, he worked. The name. I mean, his career is short-lived, whatever it was, but it was phenomenal. The people he got to work with. He can legitimately say on national television and on national pay-per-view, he pinned Ric Flair clean. Yeah. How many people can say that in their career? Fucking Kenny Dykstra. I mean, people joke all the time. It's like, Kenny's my man crush. People joke that all the time. Kenny's family to me. It's like going to the thing is like, an eye for talent. I would say, yeah, I might have an eye for talent. People have gone on, done things to things. But the thing is that there's a reason why I brought you in. I saw something in you, and the fact that you took a ball and you ran with it, I'm going to flat out quote Rich Bass from his interview with you guys.
Feel free.
Create opportunities. That's what he always liked to do with PWF, is create opportunities for people to showcase what they can do. There might be people out there who, had a bad rep elsewhere in New England. Kenny Phoenix, his nickname was Broadway for a reason, because he always went longer in his matches. He got the nickname of Broadway from the wrestling term of Broadway Ken Phoenix. Yeah. I mean, we create opportunities. My first PWF New Jersey show, I brought down, obviously, Sick and Twisted. I had Triple Licious versus Jason Blade for the Northeast Heavyweight title on that show. IQ Erwin Quincy or Pat Masters, whoever we want to call him from the Score days or anything like that, he was on my show. I was actually trying to get him more work because Pat was a nasty worker. I would say out of all the Score kids, easily the one with the most raw talent. Easily. And it's not a shot on Guy or Dan or Brian, but Pat was fucking nasty.
He was one of the smaller members, too. So
and he had to move the honor roll, which actually Nick Westgate uses as a finisher now, too, which makes sense because, they're both trained by the Pride Boys, by the Score. But I had Tony Mamaluke on that show. I had main event was initially Mikey Whipwreck was on the show. Initially, the main event was Chris Daniels right after he won the X Division title. Initially, against Chad Collier, who a lot of people might not know who Chad Collier is, but if you're a fan of the Indies, you know who he was. ROH, Metal Master was his other gimmick that he did over in Japan. He wrestled a lot with Daniels over in Japan as Curryman versus Metal Master. But it was going to be the first time on American soil that the two of them wrestled without a hood. Now, I wanted to have a link to PWF all around. So I had Jose Perez with Ariel as his manager work a guy named Tony Burma, who still works for NYWC. 5-minute squash match. Jose over with the Digga, cutting a promo saying, "I'm the biggest thing from PWF." They're bringing Chris Daniels last night to work Jason Blade up in Quincy. Not me. I should be this. So finally, Daniels comes out and says, "Well, you wanted a piece of me last night." Obviously, they said no, but if it's okay with Chad Collier, we'll make this a 3-way dance.
Yeah.
Hindsight, maybe I should not have put Jose into that match because he was clearly... I love Jose. He's one of my old friends. I've known that. But in hindsight 2020, I probably should not have put Jose Perez in there in New Jersey, of all places, with Christopher Daniels and Chad Collier. Because Jose kept up, but when Collier and Daniels mixed up, they were in the world of their own.
Right.
It's nothing against Jose. I was just trying to get the tie into PWF.
Right.
Be what it may, there was a fuck up with the finish, and Jose was scheduled to go over. He still went over, but the finish was fucked up. But that was my first show, and a couple more shows I booked with them. I always brought in people. I brought in Michael Sane. Bass was always booked. Yeah. Evan Six, Mad Dog Matt Storm. I always try to do different things, but my whole purpose was giving opportunities, because even to this day, New England is an untapped resource of pro wrestling. And a lot of people might say, "Oh, they don't know how to work," or that. I'll beg to differ that once you go past, like I said, Westerly, Connecticut, Westerly, Rhode Island, psychology is the key up here in wrestling, not flippy doos and spot. That, I want to give people from New England a chance to shine down there, creating opportunities. And you're going to say, spotting talent. Right after that, I wouldn't say that I had anything to do with it, but Jason Blade Mikaze started working ROH as a team, and then Blade started traveling. He was the FIP Tag Team Champion with Kenny King for a while. He was being flown down to Florida for a while. So it was creating opportunities. Michael Saines could start working a little more down there, doing different things. And it's just about not just the PWF name that I wanted to have the name go on, but I wanted New England to get the recognition it finally deserved. Like I said, today we're starting to with Eddie Edwards, with Biff Busick, to an extent JT Dunn. New England workers are getting out there and starting to do stuff. And I like to say, that I help that a little bit because I try to get us out there and show what New England can do, because we still are untapped resource.
Oh, yeah.
So you started running PWF New Jersey. How was the first outcome of the show? Are you happy?
I was not happy at all.
No.
Reason being, once again, I was living in Pennsylvania, which is only an hour and a half drive from where we were doing in New Jersey, but I gave promoting to people up there, so
I see.
Wasn't local promotion.
So you drew more than 10 people, though, right?
We drew more than 10 people. But, Christopher Daniels on a show was 60 people.
Yeah, you expect a little more than that.
Hello? You should have 3 times that amount just on Christopher Daniels if you have the word out. No, the guy didn't have a car. Damien Dragon, I'm sorry to take a shot at him, but he didn't have a car, and just did the local town. And it was just a time when you started doing promoting for, on the net and doing different things and there. But that wasn't huge yet. So we drew 60 people. We drew less for the next show, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, people don't know how to fucking promote.
No, would you say that's the biggest downfall of most promotions? Is
all promotions. Just
not enough promoting.
If you're going to do that, hit the towns around your town. If you have the money, okay, a newspaper ad works. A spot on rod, maybe if a few TV ads here and there. But only, I'd recommend, if you're going to do a TV ad, make sure you have a name on your show.
Yeah, you got to have a name on the show.
Because no one's going to know Joe Schmo from this guy or that guy, or from the guy.
Or at least a couple gimmick matches to promote out there,
Even then,
Come see a ladder match.
See a ladder, yeah, but something, wrestling has such a name right now, they might think it's hard. Backyard.
It's true. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I hate to say it. I hate to shit on the business. I love the business to death. And that's one thing I always try to tell people getting in the business. Rule number one: love the business is to hate the business.
Yeah.
And you gotta love it as much as you hate it, and you gotta hate it as much as you love it. Because if you don't hate it one time in your business, in your career, you're doing it wrong. You're literally doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So, but I was not happy with how Jersey was going, and I saw that the Jersey promotion was becoming an NYWC light.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that, and I understand why, because my head booker was Damian Dragon.
Right.
Who was big. He was huge in NYWC at that time, doing his Disturbed Damian Dragon gimmick with his wife, Foxy Dreams.
Yep.
And I was not happy about that. I just felt that we were just shadowing their product. And so I basically said to him, I'm pulling the name.
Yeah.
I'm not happy. This is not the essence of PWF. We're not drawing. I'm losing money hand over fist. Yeah. It's not worth it to me anymore to be doing this. And I took another. Things were fine with the Storms. I was coming up with one of our partners by the name of Joe Rules, who wrestled down in the Tri-State area as well. And we would come up and we would do spots for New Jersey to promote, to try to get people come down. My first show, I had old New England fans like Mike Jass and Grey Ghost and Mike K, who used to travel down with Grey Ghost all the time. They came down to the Jersey show. I had respect for me and also the PWF name. And Christine Coons, CG, was there.
Yep.
It was like having the family together, which was great. And maybe it was selfish, but to me it was a PWF name. It was giving people opportunities. So Damien continued to run under the name of Jersey Rampage Wrestling.
Okay.
Which is another knockoff of NYWC because they had the Rampage title.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself again, I'm like, you're not.
Now, are you involved in the Jersey Rampage?
I said initially I was going to be, but not in the book aspect, not in the money aspect, as Dean Ripley.
Okay.
I said I'd be a character because I wanted to have them to have some continuity of why the name changed. They had kept the storylines going, but why everything was going. Right.
So the storylines pretty much stayed the same. Did they take any time off between the name change?
No. And that's
so
why
just one show.
That's why I kept in. We did 5 shows under the New Jersey banner, and then they went to Rampage because I was pulling the name from them. I didn't want to do that, but to help their continuity, I agreed to stay on as a character. I sold the rights of PWF to a new owner. I see. I was going to become a manager. I was going to do the Dean Ripley thing, and I even cut a promo. I was like, you know something? I'm the only man in history to step foot in every territory of PWF, which is a shoot. It was a legit shoot. But honestly, Jersey sucks. It smells. I cross over the George Washington Bridge, and it smells like a sewer. So it's like, which it does. Newark smells like ass. Anybody who's ever driven over the GWB knows that. So I sold the rights. And I did a couple of shows, and then I said, write me out. I don't want to have anything to do with that whatsoever.
So how long was it after that you came back up here? I'm assuming you worked with the Storms when they teamed with Sheldon? I
did, but there was actually another element that people don't really know in between that. In my time off, I heard about different people trying to buy into Jersey Rampage or anything of that nature. And a name that came up that I heard through the grapevine was by the name of Eric Tapout.
Okay.
Which I'll get into, who had a great eye for wrestling, was a fan. He ran a concert promoter mostly, but he ran these convention-style concerts, but he brought in wrestlers to do autograph signings, and he would do it at weird places, weird locations. Really genius, and he called himself DIY type of lifestyle. He was very much in the punk rock lifestyle mentality. Yeah. And I'll never take that away from Eric. Eric is a fucking great promoter. Probably one of the best promoters I've ever seen in wrestling.
Right.
I will never, ever take that away from Eric. Well,
but
there's always a but.
Yeah.
The guy's a shitbag. I'm gonna flat out say that, and that's getting into a couple of things there. I contact him, say, hey, I was Damien's old partner. I have this idea where we do wrestling shows, but we do conventions.
Right.
As well, as part of it, you make it a WrestleMania type
like
event.
Like an interactive kind of
every
deal.
time that I said, he's like, yes, I was actually thinking about the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Because I saw he did this DIY thing, unusual style, everything. So I was like, this is gonna be great. I said, okay, well, his promoting and my knowledge of wrestling and the business, how could you lose? You got a great idea. And that's where the name Pro Wrestling Syndicate came from.
Now that's the PWS that runs out of
That is
New
correct.
York.
We were talking about it, and we always joked about the fact that he's a big Yankee fan.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, but I'm a big Red Sox fan.
Yeah.
So with always the pinstripes or anything like that, I was like, Syndicate sounds like a really mob type of mentality,
right?
DIY punk rock type of name. Like it's like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla was starting to get big. I was like, Pro Wrestling Syndicate is like pretty hot. So right then it was myself, Tap Out, and a guy by the name of Joey Image from New Jersey were the original owners of that. And at that time, I was like, okay, we're going to build this show. We're going to have autograph signings. We're going to do so much shit with this and make it an event. We're going to make it a happening. And I initially said to him, I was like, I want to just run 4 times a year. Seasonal.
Yeah,
Make it an event. Make it like the circus is coming to town. Because if we're come from Carnies, we're from the circus. Make it like a circus, but make it a huge event, like a WrestleMania type event where you have like the Access Festival and then the actual thing, a live band, maybe a live band playing, or
in between,
whole bunch of shit. There's a whole like that. That's where, and to Eric's credit, they're still like that.
Yeah.
To another extent, and I'll get into that. But like I said, I will never ever say a bad word about Eric Tap Out, the promoter.
As a promoter, yeah.
Fucking
as
great.
A human, though.
As a human being, he's a fucking piece of shit. And I've kept quiet for a very long time, close to 7 years, about all this shit, and I'm finally coming out about it. There was an incident when Tap Out and I first started doing work together. One of the companies videotaping our show, besides RF, which was controversial at that time as it was because of all the...
It was right after the
incident. Down with that. And that was, I know I cracked the joke of the 16...
Perverted justice.
The 80-18. I lived down in Pennsylvania at that time. I have the VHS tape of that show.
Oh, yeah.
It's around somewhere in my boxes and everything like that. And we were going to have the DOI, which was the Declaration of Independence, which was a big dirt sheet back in the day.
Yep.
Run by a guy by Sean McCafferty. They called the Mick. And they were going to videotape it. And the Mick and I had some sort of falling out personally. It came to I was promoting for PWS, and it was a time I was going to 3 shows a weekend. Didn't matter where it was in the tri-state area.
Right.
And I was advertising.
Handing out flyers.
Because I wasn't going to allow what happened with New Jersey to happen again.
Right.
Under my watch. Especially when we were going to have names like Samoa Joe, names like Chris Daniels, Jay Lethal, Human Tornado, and a whole bunch of other names on the show. Abyss. And initially our card was the double main event. It was going to be Mana, who was big at the time down there. He's now back to New Zealand, versus Abyss, and Christopher Daniels versus Reckless Youth, which had never happened before, which would have been a fucking 5-star classic.
Yeah.
If you know Reckless Youth, Tom Cara is a fucking great, and he was one of the founders of Chikara.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great wrestler. Him and Daniels were just tore shit up.
I was gonna say, he had a big name on the indie scene forever.
He was called the King of the Indies for a reason, because he hit every single indie, really.
Yeah. He was everywhere.
He was everywhere. Being what it was back then, I wasn't going to be able to get half the workers, and it sucked. at the time, and I had already strained relationship with Bill Behrens, who ran Wildside, because Ring of Honor double booked Tony Mamaluke on one of the nights of the Chris Daniels on the night of the first New Jersey show.
Okay.
So he was going to go from PWF Mayhem up in Quincy to a Ring of Honor show. And I'm like, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing Gabe is advertising Chris Daniels. I'm like, Behrens, dude, really?
Yeah.
Like, I've been advertising. You've had a deposit for both of us for a couple of months now.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, because it's Ring of Honor, I kind of have to give you someone else because it's there. And I'm like, I've been advertising. Like really? He's my mainlander. He's like, well, who are you going to give me that's comparable? He's like, I'll give you Shannon Moore. What?
Yeah.
So you're fucking going to give me Shannon Moore when I ask for Christopher Daniels?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to knock anything about Shannon Moore. Shannon Moore is a great worker.
Right.
But I'm asking for the best cut of meat in the fucking world, and you're giving me a corner store hamburger.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no. So I had to cut a deal with Behrens at that time to give Gabe Tony Mamaluke for 3 more shows, because I had a whole thing instead for Daniels for 1.
Yeah.
So he could be part of the purists with John Walters.
Yeah.
I was like, to have my headliner, it's worth it. I was like, I love CJ
Right,
Death,
yeah.
but
He's
necessary
yeah.
evil. So I had to, deal with Behrens again, because he was all the TNA talent. He was head of their talent relations at the time before Bob Ryder was involved.
Yep.
And all that information. So we're running PWS, sorry. And once again, I bring in a shitload of New England guys.
Yeah.
I have Jason Blade versus Danny DeManto down there. A 4-way including Michael Sane. I bring in the Canadian Superstars, which was Jay Busta and Dave Cole, to go against the Outcast Killers, which was one of the huge teams for Ring of Honor back in the Tri-States back in the day. Mad Dog Matt Storm was supposed to be working crew for me. I mean, I ran my locker room at the time, but he got called out. Bass was on it. Rob Tuttle was on it. A referee by the name of Mike Mongoose was on it. The ring announcer was Chris Norman. My commentator was Sean Gorman. I mean, I brought in...
So it was just New England up.
Once again, creating opportunity for people.
Right.
And also creating an opportunity for my PWF family. That's a reoccurring theme you're hearing in my face. I'm always about PWF name, regardless of where I am in my business or in my career. So we draw 600 people our first show.
Right.
Standing room only. We had our payroll and everything. I was paid back. Basically, knowing going into the show, I was getting my money back. Being what it was, this, that, and the other thing. Chris Hero was supposed to be on that show as well. He called out. So I had to cover other paydays and this, that, and I said to Tap Out when I'm doing the payout at the end, I was like, I deserve a little more of a higher percentage because since Hero isn't there, Hero's asking X amount of dollars, I fronted the money for everybody else. I'm covering now a higher percentage of the payroll.
Yeah, then
I deserve a higher cut of the gate at the end of the day.
Right.
I think it's reasonable considering the fact that I was putting in more money that, I was like, listen, I understand that you put the most money in there, but I deserve something a little bit more, comparable to what you're getting back. Just show for what I did because I don't want to lose money on this deal. He agreed. Now, I'll tell you this flat out. Tap Out and I fought on a daily basis about the card.
Yeah.
Mostly because he was not a wrestling guy. He was a fan, and he was trying to do something great. Like we both were. We had both same end game. But the fact of the matter is that he is like, he once said to Matt Storm, New England wrestling sucks because of psychology. That the New Jersey fan would not take to a New England show, a New England wrestling style. I'm thinking to myself, wrestling's wrestling. Right. You got the crowd. You can have any type of match. Yeah. You can have spotty fat all you want, but still have psychology involved in that. Well, going into it, I was promoting the show. I was at a show in New Jersey, and I finally met the Mick, who was the guy running the DOI. And he said to me one time, he's like, hey, can I buy you a beer? And I said no. I was like, I'm not a I'm not drinking tonight. I got an hour and a half drive back down to Philadelphia where I'm working, where I live. But thank you. I appreciate that. And he took that as a sign of disrespect. Like not shaking somebody's hand.
Right,
which is another pet peeve. No one fucking tri-state shakes hand, but everybody in New England does.
Yeah.
It's psychology and it's respect. One of the things I told Nate Grist, who's here with me right now, who, he just came as a fan of PWF initially, and I said, hey, do you want to start shoot? You come behind, the barrier and start shooting for us. First thing you do, walk in the room. I don't care who they are. You never know who they are. You shake their motherfucking hand. I said the same thing to the Santana brothers, to Mike and Dave and to Lucy, who came and started as PWF fans. Shake hands. To Tubbs, Ryan McConville, same thing. Scott Moody, people that I brought in. I didn't want my name, because your name, I brought them in. Associated with that, you shake everybody's hand from there. So he had the balls to say that to Matt Storm, that New England people can't work. And then from there, he just fought all the time about wrestling, and I'm just like, this is not fucking worth it. This is like, he's got great ideas, but I can't be killing myself for a guy who's a complete asshole.
Yeah.
So with that going on, the Mick writes a scathing article about me, calling me a money mark and all this shit, saying I disrespected him for not taking a beer. There's a thing called beer respect. What the fuck is beer respect? Like, literally, what the fuck is beer respect? But he was still shooting the show. But he was still shitting on my name on the DOI.
Right, yeah.
Well, we go to one of his WSU shows, because back in the day, before Drew Cordero ran it, the Mick ran it.
Right.
And it was a lot more risque than the Beyond Wrestling version of
now,
that.
yeah.
I remember a show, and this is going to a Tap Out story. I went to a show with Tap Out just to talk to the Mick and to see everybody from there. And there was some friction between Tap Out and Damien Dragon. And Tap Out went and said hi to the family and said hi to Damien's son, who was, about 2 years old at the time. And they were cordial with each other. And I remember fucking Amy Lee cutting a promo about the Diva Killers, which was Kayla Sparks and Miss DeVille.
Yep.
Saying, I shove bigger tampons out my cunt than you two bitches. And I'm like, holy fuck!
Yeah, it's
like you're dropping a C-bomb in the middle of a wrestling show. One, there's a kid in the audience, kids in the audience. Women's wrestling. Don't get me wrong, WSU has done a bang-up job for that, and I'll credit the Mick for that. But what the fuck? You're dropping a C-bomb in a show. Holy crap! That's ECW. That's Ron Niemi up in California stuff. Really. And here's a story that is embellished a million times. I have never outright vocally on a shoot interview, because I've never done a shoot interview, or to anybody but my friends, have exposed my side of the story. And there's a reason behind that, is because I'm a New England boy. I have respect. I have respect for everybody that came around me, my trainers, X, Y, and Z. Even if I have heat with somebody, or if I cause heat with somebody, I'm going to pay respect to the business and shake somebody's hand. I might fucking hate you, but I'll shake your hand and say, brother, how are you? Good to see you. And walk out, look you in the eye. Because shaking someone's hand and not looking in the eye is as much, you might as well not shake their hand in the first place. So I say, the Mick is continuing to rub my name in the dirt and all that jazz. Tap Out and I go out to dinner afterwards to IHOP. And I didn't have any money at that time. I spent it on the tolls, my gas. We got comped in the show because of the Mick. And even though he did, it was exposure. It was the biggest mark site in the tri-state area, was the DOI. Yeah. And everybody knew about the DOI, mostly because who was going to say what on their chat board. Yeah. It was always about their chat board, and they were starting shit with left, right, different people, and people want, fake names. It was all about fucking fake names. And even before, when the Burning Hammer first started, all the workers, it was 98% workers, 2% fans. Yeah. Straight shitting on each other.
Under aliases.
Everything like that. You never know who's doing what, this, that, and the other thing. So Tap Out's like, I'm hungry. Around the corner from the building where we were was an IHOP. I said, I have no money, but I'll sit with you. He offered to buy me dinner that night. And I said, great, I'll get you back, not a problem whatsoever. We had our dinner, he paid for everything, great. And then I started having more and more falling outs to tap out after that event. But it has to do with the DOI, which led to the final thing. The Mick leaked a story that I went back in and stole the waitress's tip off the table
at the IHOP.
At the IHOP.
I see. So the Mick wasn't even there?
That's correct. So you know exactly who leaked that story was fucking Eric Tapout.
It's quite a ridiculous thing to say.
And first of all, okay, I'm going to go on record again. I said I cracked a joke at the beginning. I'm Jewish. I understand that. We have a stigma about us. But, I mean, and I might have been a bad tipper in the past, but I'm not cheap.
Yeah.
I always took care of my boys. I always paid my boys. I always paid for extra things for people. I always slipped people extra money. Like, there was a big angle back in the CZW days with Sozio. Mr. Sozio, he now is young. Yeah. He actually headbutted a fan that got in his face at a CZW show, which is great. He got crazy heat for that. So we got great heat as PWS. So I had him booked against Coco Beware.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great match in this. So we got crazy heat from there. And as a thing from that, so I knew he was going to great heat. At the end of the match, Coco said, hold on one second, went to the back, brought out Brutus Beefcake, put him in the sleeper hold, and shaved Niles' head.
All right.
So it was great. So it was giving something back to the CZW fans. Like I said, I always try to be continuity-wise and everything like that, but it was a part of that event mentality that you never know what's going to happen, you never know who's going to show up, this thing, that thing, the other thing. So I basically, before that show, told the Mick, go fuck yourself. That never happened. Tap, I was like, I never said that. I'm thinking about mine. You said it, motherfucker. You totally said it. Just admit it to me. You said it. We'll move on for our time.
Not only did I pay for his meal, but then he stole my extra tip money.
Exactly. That's what this motherfucker said. So I said to the Mick, you are no longer taping our show. So he leaked this story. He went on a rampage on me, this thing and the other thing. I went to a show at Gino Caruso's place. I forgot where it was. And the Mick was there, and he passed by me. He's like, I'm going to have your show canceled. It was in the days where everybody tried to have people's shows canceled. Call the commission back in Rhode Island. Because PWF had a show canceled in Bristol because someone called the commission. Back right before Genesis 2. But it's bigger in the tri-state area. And, promoters would pay other wrestlers not to show up at shows. And back at that time, I'm still very good friends with a guy who refed for Chikara and he refs for ISW. He's called Ref Sonic. Because Quack thought he looked like Sonic the Hedgehog because he had spiky blonde hair.
All right.
So that's how he was going to get in. And when he was going to be a worker, they were going to do a Sonic the Hedgehog gimmick with him because Chikara loves.
Does he count fast?
No, he doesn't count fast.
Say.
But for CCW, he was called Eric Michaels. Anyway, he was high school friends with two wrestlers who went on to become Eddie Kingston and Jigsaw. Okay. King was booked for my show. That's how I was going to get Hero. And King basically goes to the Mick and says, you touch Spencer or you have the show canceled and I lose a payday, I will fucking kill you. So, I mean, it's good that, and I still see, I see King and Jig and they're so cool with me, but I was talking to Eric about that the other day and it was just laughing. So the show went off without a hitch, great show, everything like that, but I knew in the back of my mind, Tap out was a shitbag.
Right, yeah.
We're starting to book the second show and I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I'm getting fucking ragged on, called a con artist, being called that I stiff people on pay by everybody on the sun. I'll go on record. I not only never stiffed anybody on pay, but when I became a promoter on my own without Matt Storm or anything like that, you walked in the door, you got an envelope.
As soon as you walked in.
As soon as you walked in, at a sign of respect. As I paid you as soon as you walked in the fucking door. And you could have left that moment and find out, been pissed off and, you got paid on that. But as a sign of respect, you got paid.
Right.
So you can never say to anybody, I have never paid anybody. I never try to give people what they ask for, if not a little bit more. From New England, if I couldn't pay you what your initial, I'll put you in a car and I'll give you the driver's money. So at least if I can't pay you the extra, I got you a ride and I took care of your ride down there. So one of the issues that happened is that Tap Out booked the flights for all the TNA people with Bob Ryder. And where our show was northern New Jersey, and he booked Samoa Joe to fly into Philadelphia.
Yeah, so it's...
Which is down by me, so I'm thinking to myself, fuck. But he booked him the day before at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I going to do with Joe?
For a day, just chilling.
Yeah, Joe. So I got him a signing at Allentown at a card store.
Yeah.
And we had time beforehand. So I was like, do you want to go out for lunch? I'll take you out for lunch. Took him out to Dave & Buster's.
Yeah.
Got one of those meal and game deals, so you get the card and everything like that. Whole bar tab for him. His video games, paid for it all. A good chunk of change. But I'm not going to talk about a number. But I took him out. Took care of him and took him to the signing. And then I was going to drive him up north. After the show to his hotel. I was going to drive back to Philadelphia because I put so much money into this show. I couldn't get a hotel in Newark.
Right,
I was just saying, I'll wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning so I can see my wife, my ex-wife, before I go, and so I wouldn't be gone for a full wrestling weekend.
Yeah.
So the guy who runs this place gives me all of his leftover Joe gimmicks. I said, here, have fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So I figured we will, I'm going to talk to him. I said, we'll split it. I said, this promoter's giving me the pictures.
Right, yeah.
I'll supply you the pictures. We'll charge $10 a head.
Go 5 and 5.
Go 5 and 5. Joe's like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. Little did I know this was going to lead to something later on, but I set up all the tables for the PWS show. And I have Joe next to the RF video table.
Yeah.
He flips his lid.
Yeah.
Because this is still at the time where anybody from ROH has heat with Rob Feinstein. So he goes to the locker room. I have a line down the building for Samoa Joe autographs. So Joe was like, I don't fucking care. I'm going to do my match and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So I go to Dapper Joe, who was a promoter from New Jersey, who was helping us out. He got us the building that we were in down over there. I was like, Joe, could you help me out? Because, Joe is being unrealistic.
Yeah.
And I understand he has heat with Feinstein, but, he's got a huge line out there. So he said, well, what are you willing to give Joe to go out there? I said, tell him he can have 100% of the gimmick money.
Right, yeah.
Just to go out there. I figured it was the least I could do. And I'll get him a table on the other end of the building away from Rob. Fine, not a problem whatsoever. He signs, he does his match with Kingston. Great match, the whole 9 yards. Let alone that, I guess the second show after I was gone, because I told Tap Out before the second show that I was gone. I'd said to him, I don't want any money from you. I'm handing you even the name PWS, even though that was my deal.
Yeah.
That the second show, Samoa Joe didn't make the flight, and he said, the DOI and Tap Out said it was because of his issues with me. He didn't want to work for me again, so they brought in Loki. Loki was available, and I'm thinking to myself, the issue with Joe wasn't such a huge deal, but he it was cleared up. I thought everything was smooth. Everything was fine, and then there was another incident where Human Tornado missed his flight, so he had to get a hotel room, and he paid it out of his pocket. So Tap Out's like, well, will you, he called me up. He's like, will you cover, pay him back, reimburse him?
Right, yeah.
It's $100. I was like, yeah, I'll write him a check, and I'll send him a check. So I got his shoot name, I got his shoot address.
Yeah,
mailed out to California, because he was out of California.
Yep.
He was doing a double shot. He was working for Jack Sabbath. And he never cashed a check. So he was flipping out on Tap Out, because he couldn't cash a personalized check from a bank in New York. Obviously, you're not going to be able to cash a personalized check unless you have a fucking bank account.
Right, yeah.
So Tap Out called me, so I never paid him, never sent him the check,
yeah.
all this. So him and the Mick completely destroyed me. Like, I'm talking about basically you couldn't go on Google without seeing my name on the DOI.
Yeah.
And this was tough. And I would have, Matt Storm, screen printed, so in case I was looking at getting a lawyer.
Yeah.
This is, defamation of character. This is really bad.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, him denying until he blew in the face that I stole from fucking IHOP. I never stole from IHOP. I don't steal. I am not a thief.
Right.
Like seriously, this is absolute bullshit. So, and as this time, Tappa and I still talked on occasion, but I didn't, because for the business sake, I kept cool. But I was like, dude, come on, what are you doing to me? Like he's like, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Obviously never took care of it. All this shit. It was just a fucked up period.
You should have had that beer with the Mick.
I know. Something. If I had that beer with the Mick, this would probably never have happened. Yeah. But it leads to a good story. But the thing is that I kept quiet for years, and quite honestly, I've worked for Tap Out since. Yeah. I've managed shows for him, and a couple of things, including there's one incident which you might have heard about. I managed the Hoods and Kenny Dykstra in a show in Connecticut against a couple of people, and Nick Gage came out at the end of it, grabbed me, handcuffed me, and caned me to fucking bludgeons. Now, first of all, if he's hitting Cash and Pyro with a chair, staple gunning some people, this sort of thing, in psychology, a manager would not stick around.
Yeah. I
was an hour late because of traffic. I was driving with Matt Storm and my friend Scott. I really had no ground to say no to some spots because I was an hour late in the show and it already started. So he's like, well, would you be okay if I caned you? I'm like, well, sure, Tap Out said that he's not going to hurt me before the show. I should have seen that a manager on a psychology would have ran the fuck out of Dodge. And I wore a Red Sox jacket because he, like I said, he loved the Yankee. He liked the cheap heat of the Yankees versus Red Sox, and he wanted to do a gimmick with that with Jason Blade. And there's video out there of Nick Gage bludgeoning me to fucking beating the shit out of me, and I know that was a shot from Tap Out.
Yeah.
And all that.
Give me the crucifixion.
Yeah, literally. Well, thanks. You trying to say a Jew should be crucified?
No.
This close to Christmas, really? I see how it is. I'm kidding. I'll
have to buy you a beer after this.
Sounds good. Otherwise, you might put me on your website and take a shot at me. Fantastic, asshole. So, Tap Out's done everything in his power to ruin my name, make me look like shit, him and the Mick. And years later, the Mick finally, said that, called Tap Out a mark, what he really was. And he went through many different partners and this, that, and the other thing, and said, maybe it wasn't Spencer Jawitz's fault that it was a fail. But he never outright apologized to him. But I said, him saying that maybe it's not Spencer Jawitz's fault is him apology in his way. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And a lot of people said to me, Spencer, why'd you work for him after he shit on your house? I said, because that's the way the business is. You still do business. He's like, I didn't have to, but I did.
Yeah.
He still paid me, and he paid me all right. I'm not gonna say that. But he ruined my name, which will lead back into something that you never would thought would have come out of anywhere before. I was going through a divorce. And it was no secret, and you could tell from that, my love was New England wrestling. Yeah. I was even up until Genesis 3 still driving from Philadelphia to run shows up in New England. So, and my job at Booker went to something, Mark Reality became the Booker at that time with Kyle Storm. So I went into production value and everything of that nature, which I was initially brought in anyway for. And one night after a PWS show, I went to see Bass and a ring crew guy by the name of JP Griffin, who worked for PWF and ACW and works a lot with the Dillon brothers up at UFO. Okay. and Chris Norman, because Chris Norman was still the ring announcer for Tap Out.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, giving people opportunities. That was something that I was taught by the Damned. That's something that Rich talked about in his thing, is always want to give people opportunities. And one of the clear people that we gave an opportunity for, whether he decided to mention us or not, was JT Dunn. We gave JT Dunn an opportunity. He kicked the door open and the kid's blowing up. But you could flat out say, and this is not a shot at Sean Candido or anybody like that, but the people who gave JT Dunn his exposure was not WCW, it was PWF. And I will say that to anybody, and anybody who knows JT would probably agree with me on that. And him and Samosa, with a little help from Jen, because Jen was a PWF original, got to start with PWF. But that's, once again, giving people opportunities. It's what you make of it that gets you further. And JT's made a career of himself. He's blowing up because he's, like I said to you guys before, the Ron Burgundy of professional wrestling of, hey, everybody, come see how good looking I am. All over that. And this is not a shot at JT because he promotes himself like a motherfucker. I'm just saying is that he got himself there, but he had the outlet of PWF for people to see his work. And that's where it goes from there. So I went out to drink after the PWS show in Bayside, New York with Bass, JP Griffin, and Chris Norman. And we're going all night. We're going hard. And New York bars go until 4 o'clock in the morning. And the thing we kept on saying was, if Ric Flair can do it, so can we. Kamikazes, baby. And that's, that's a running joke. Everybody says that. If Flair can do it, so can I. So, we're doing that. We're buying shots for people at the bar. At 4 o'clock, the bartender turns to us and said, all right, if you're not staying, get the fuck out. You three, sit your asses down. Sit your asses down. Sun's coming up. We're playing beer pong and fucking this bar. People are walking by with Starbucks cups, looking in. The bar's closed. We're still drinking and doing that. Costs us half our tab, everything like that. And I called Matt and I said, Matt, I'm going to look for a job. I'm moving up to New England. It's about time.
Yeah.
And this is about the time, it's like, everybody still thinks, Spencer's always been a New England boy. I had never lived in New England at that time except for college, and I wasn't even in wrestling at the time I started college. So it was a time where the Storms were working with Sheldon as part of the merger, which in hindsight was not a good idea.
Yeah, apparently not.
But it was good for business. In the short term, it was very good for business. But PWF did not really need to merge with NECW. They were at their time where they were drawing great numbers. When they had Chris Daniels in the night before my New Jersey show, they were drawing. And this was the PWF name before NECW's merger. Bob had just left NECW, and Sheldon was kind of floundering. PWF saw an opportunity to go to the next level, and like I said, this is just my opinion, and I could be wrong, but in my view, they had an opportunity because Sheldon is as much of a brand name as NECW is.
Right.
Shoot, honest about that. So they started working. They did the merger, and they decided, as Bass said in his interview, that NECW was a more regionalized, recognized name. Mm-hmm. However, they merged all the champions. They kept Genesis. They kept the Toxic Waltz, which were PWF known, matches.
Yeah. Now, you came up during the merger while it was already going down?
It's already going down.
Was the TV deal already in place?
It was not in place just yet. They had brought in Paul Richard.
Okay, yeah.
Who was one of the original promoters for ECW and got them their Spanish
he did
deal
the whole
up here.
New England area thing.
And he was their promoter up here.
Yeah.
And they were starting to do that, and I was the promo guy. Now, here's something else that's interesting about that. Right before I moved, the Storm sent out an email to 4 people to join a creative committee to handle all the bookings and all the creative. So we would have meetings right before the show, discuss promos, discuss everything, so we were in a square. It was me, Rich Bass, a kid by the name of Brian Nato,
yep,
and Sean Gorman were all asked to be part of the creative team. This is right after George Carroll left.
Okay.
Gorman said no.
Yep.
That email got leaked to DOI with another shot on me saying that Spencer's going through a very bad divorce, which it wasn't a very bad divorce. It was very mutual. Yeah. We might have had shady circumstances during the divorce, but it wasn't a bad divorce. And he's nothing but a money mark. And how's he going to... He's a failed promoter from New England already. He's going to fail again. I'm thinking to myself, well, I didn't fail in New England. Yeah. Failed in the tri-state area, but I really don't feel that I really failed in the tri-state area because I just surrounded myself with shitheads.
Right.
And going back to the shitheads with Eric Tapout, the best thing he ever did for his company was hook up with Pat Buck, Ruth Starr from up here, because Pat brought it to a whole new level. They brought in a great video, crew, which actually was working with Paul Lombardi for a while on that.
For a little bit there, yeah.
For a little bit.
I found out some sort of falling out there too.
Well, yeah, falling out, but it's a recurring story with Tapout.
I guess.
That there's gonna be bullshit. But Roostar had his, was a Bob boy.
Yeah.
Him with Jay Silva or Slam Tech guys. So I give Pat Buck all the credit in the world because PWS is running the way that I had originally envisioned it with Tapout. So kudos to them. But Eric Tapout, you're a fucking douche. Getting text from Matt. So it gets leaked to the DOI. So I'm like, oh my god! I was like, they're about to, start working on this Comcast deal. I don't want to give them bad publicity. My name is not so great on the news.
Yeah.
I was like, not that people really believe in that shit, but I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that to the Storms. And Matt and Kyle said to me, no, we got your back.
Yeah.
We want you to come in and do promos. And this was leading into the Comcast deal, which was going to be great, and great for me because my background, again, is theater management and directing.
Right.
So directing promos is my shtick.
Yeah.
Right, what I love to do. Cutting, writing, scripts and doing stuff like that. It was right where I was. They were giving me my dream job in wrestling.
Yeah.
And allowing me to move back home. To me, home was New England. I had never lived in New England except for 4 years in college, but I was moving home. So I moved in. I was living in Kyle Storm's basement with Evan Six. That was a mistake. Not necessarily living in Kyle's basement, but living with Evan Six was a mistake. Just because he was just a shitty roommate.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get into that, but I'll just say that it was
never wash the dishes.
Did you know about that?
No, I know. It was a shitty roommate. I figured that was
that's one that I'll say.
Like
I would do the food shopping for myself, and when I'm at work.
I heard a few Balls Mahoney shitty roommate stories, and I'm guessing he never washed the dishes.
But it just really bad. Matt just asked me if do I ever shut the fuck up. That's the one thing I'll say this.
Is he listening? We're not live.
No, I know, right? Here's one thing, and I'll flat out say this. One of the reputations, besides the fact that I'm a good guy and I always try to do a thing, is that yes, I have a mouth. I like to talk, and that was a reputation that did follow me around. However, there were things like I'm saying tonight that I kept quiet about for a very long time, and I wanted the time to be able to do that. So, like I said to my fiance, I said to everybody, I was like, I'm probably going late, honey. You might want to stay out tonight. Just because I have a lot of shit to get off. I mean, what are we going into our third hour right now? And I'm not really into the merger that much. And we still have another couple of years to go. So, the Comcast thing gets announced. And, I was at the press conference, so to speak, at Comcast for that huge deal, huge deal. And that would have been, honestly, that would have changed the scape of New England wrestling. Hands down, without a doubt, because of the amount of households, we would have been in more households than ROH had on HDNet. Yeah. Easily. Because HDNet, you had to have a certain server, do that. Everybody had Comcast, especially in this area. The next step would have been Nesson. Honestly. So, I was initially going to be brought in. I was brought in to be the promo guy for that, and that was absolutely phenomenal. It was great to go. As Bass said on the DVR, it said New England Championship Wrestling. Night before, we get the call. We got the tape. Not going up. You guys are going to be on demand, and we'll give it a trial run, and then if it works out, we'll put you on the actual show. A ridiculous amount of money and publicity because we said we were going to be on this time.
Yep.
You know, just reputation alone, we all took a hit.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. Everybody took a hit.
Imagine.
But regardless if it was our fault or not, you know wrestling. Regardless if it's your fault, you're taking the heat.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty shitty deal to find out the day before.
It was the day before, and you know, it was just so bad all around. It's like, how can you fucking bounce back from that?
It must have been a shitty day.
It was a shit for everybody. And we tried to do, but you couldn't find us. It was a big joke that you could not find us on demand.
I remember it was buried deep.
Yeah.
Like local sports, it was buried deep within the on demand.
Yeah.
ranks.
So even that would not help us. It didn't help our draw. We were losing
Right,
money,
yeah.
and you know, even with Triple W, I thought that it was doomed to fail. It was just the merger was doomed to fail because this went through. Because it was like everybody should put money. We lost some money.
Invested in a lot of different the
time, effort,
Yeah.
advertising, publicity. We had sponsors lined up. We were trying to sell some sponsorship packages. Just trying to do the business the right way and then the rug got pulled out of us. And it just sucks that it all came down to that, because the landscape today of New England wrestling would be a lot different if NECW was on Comcast. The way it was supposed to be. Straight up.
Now, I'm sure that whole situation put a lot of pressure on guys like Sheldon and the Storms.
It did. I think
caused a lot of friction.
It caused a lot of. I think this is my opinion. It caused enough friction that the rumblings of us closing down shop.
Yep.
Not PWF, but closing up shop was in the back of the minds.
Right.
What actually came up to the final nail in the coffin, and this is straight up what it was going to be, was we were coming up on Genesis 10.
Yeah.
And I've always said since day one, I bled red and black, which was always known as the PWF colors.
Yep.
That was the color of our ring. That was the color of everything for us. And we were going to do a retrospective of PWF, a roundtable.
Yeah.
It was days when the WWE were doing their roundtables on the on-demand program. We were going to do a roundtable, finally. And we're going to release it for Genesis 10. So we had a meeting. We brought in, TJ Wilde, who works as Matt Reason down in Connecticut now. We started talking to Mark Reality again. The Storms and I, we were going to bring in interviews. We started doing interview segments about what PWF meant to it. We had Kenny get involved in it. Just what PWF, because if you thought about in the last 10 years per se, back in my day, people came from Eugenio, they came from Tony Rumble, and they came from NEWA.
And that was about it.
That was it. But you're known as those guys, those boys from those companies.
Right.
Even Primal Conflict.
Right.
People talked about Primal Conflict for years, and I got into business towards the end of Primal.
Yeah.
Which I still think CZW is a complete ripoff of what the old Primal, because Primal was doing hardcore before hardcore was cool.
Right.
I mean, that's straight up with Vertebreaker and Jose and all those guys. Storms.
And they brought in a lot of the ECW guys too.
Exactly. So we're talking about this, and it was actually a conversation I had with Sheldon about that we were doing this retrospective. And Sheldon said, "It's a dead name. You won't sell 5 DVDs." So I brought this up at one of our planning meetings.
Yeah.
And Kyle said, "Oh, really?" Okay. Well, that put the seeds in our head that, okay, not only are we leaving,
Right.
but we're putting the band back together, as they would say. It's a cliche in New England. I mean, not New England wrestling, but we were putting the band back together. And we already had this plan that we were going to leave the whole 9 yards. They had asked me and Brian Nadeau and Bass to come on as owners.
Yeah.
And it was Sheldon. The owners of NECW were Sheldon, Matt, Kyle, and a gentleman by the name of Roy Rossi,
right.
who was a silent partner of PWF, handled a lot of our business aspects of
yep.
it. We'll never call him a money mark because he wasn't a money mark. He was an investor, and he handled our business, all the legalities, all the trademarks, everything legal we had to take care of. He took care of it, and he was our accountant.
Yeah.
So anything we needed, any contracts done, we were one of the first in the area actually to do waivers for our own equipment, rentals, agreements, the whole shebang. And so, a couple of days before the last show, which was the Toxic Waltz, where Handsome Johnny, Todd Hansen, did like the 63-minute Iron Man.
It was like the turn on Scott Levesque thing. Like there's a Scott Levesque turn involved.
Yep. Which we we moved into the PWF storyline.
Yep.
When we brought Levesque in, that was Sammy Lane. It was always based upon Sammy. So if you look at the tenure of the Resurrection years, one of the main storylines is always Sammy Lane versus Todd.
Right.
Even when he had the name change, the whole everything of that nature. And he so basically, I was talking to Sheldon, and he said, I said we're doing the DVD, that he still said that, and he turned to, at the end of the day, turned to everybody and said he had heard inklings that we were leaving.
Right.
And he said, I should have seen the writing on the wall from the way Spencer was talking. No, I never mentioned that we were leaving.
Right.
I just mentioned a DVD.
You were doing a DVD, yeah.
If anything, you can credit Sheldon Goldberg to the fact that the PWF came back because we decided to say at the end of the day, oh, you're gonna say we're not gonna sell 5 DVDs? Guess what, motherfucker?
Yeah,
we're gonna just restart the company. And we were gonna make the announcement to the company, to everybody at the last show, that we were reopening PWF.
Right.
In the middle of our locker room meeting, Sheldon said, Spencer, Rich, Matt, and Kyle are reopening PWF. I do not know what's going on with ACW after tonight. So we were all kind of like pissed off. I was like, you exposed it. You shouldn't have.
Yeah.
and he came in. I went up to him to shake his hand. Boss, how are you? He looked at me, walked right past me. I'm like, okay. So, and there was rumors for the longest time that we had planned this since day one.
Right. Yeah, and that wasn't the case.
That was not the case. If Comcast went through, I truly believe we would still be with NECW. This landscape of New England would have been changed.
Different, yeah.
It would have been a whole different ball game altogether. But at the end of the day, it became the PWF versus NECW crew. And I can honestly tell you that we said to anybody who's working for either company, if you're working for us, we have no problem with you working at NECW.
Right.
If we find out that you're not getting paid, you're done with us.
Yeah.
If we find out that you're going to if you're in a high profile with us and you take a booking of theirs on the same night and you do not cancel on them, you're done with us.
Right.
It's just a respect thing.
Yeah.
We're never going to stop you from working for them.
Do you know if Sheldon was telling his guys not to work for you?
I don't know if he was saying that, but he was definitely saying that, like I said, he was bad-mouthing us. And like I say, we did our fair share of shit slinging as well, and we're not gonna dispute that. If you listen to early stuff of the Pure 6 Wrestling Roundtable, a lot of shots were thrown at NECW. A lot of shots were thrown at Brian Nadeau, who's one of their guys right there. A lot of slinging, but I think, Sheldon never outright said it, but his television champion was Ryan Bisbal, who went on to be our heavyweight champion. And once he had our title, Sheldon never booked him again.
Yeah.
So he was a casualty of war. But at the end of the day, Ryan and Ivy were loyal to us. And we rewarded them because when we did a unification with Steve Corino of the Universal title, Bisbal was the one who got both straps. Yeah. He's the one who finally unified. And that goes back, finally, Universal is doing something with us. And the Universal and Northeast titles are now, the lineages are together. So they're like I said, unfortunately, Bismarck was one of the casualties of war. We had a tough time if we wanted to book, say, for example, D.C. Dillinger or Eddie Edwards, because they were, George Carroll went back to NECW, was booking with them for a while, and they were Sheldon boys.
Now, what was some of your favorite moments of that last resurrection of PWF?
I think the first show was the fact is we had a lot of old fans come back from the school days.
Yep.
We also had what we called a throwback rumble, where we invited back old wrestlers.
Guys did their old gimmicks too.
The
in
old
the rumble,
gimmicks,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we finally buried the hatchet with Kilgore. He came back and did it.
Yeah.
We buried the hat.
Did he break his nose?
No, he did not break his nose. But he was in there for a while. We brought back. We had a team called the Nice World Order, which was I don't know if you ever met Big Scott. He was part of that. He's one of Bass's good friends. He comes around a lot with his wife Amy. We brought in Mike Pava, and there was a lot of heat with Pava for a while, mostly stemming from Mercedes.
Yeah.
And we had brought in Busta, even though we had long-term plans with Cole separately, and we eventually put the title on Cole. We brought in Busta for that. So that was a great show, and I flew in. I personally, actually, very few people know about this. I personally flew in Ebony Blade from California to be part of the show because he, in the original PWF, he was the heart and soul. The one thing people always talked about was his locker room speeches. They were almost like, do one for the Gipper type of, like Paul Heyman,
be on the mat, kind of. Yeah,
I'd kill for this guy. I'd kill for this company. And he came in and he did one of the speeches, and then we put him and Bad Boy Billy Black, who's retired, as number 1 and 2 in this Rumble. So that was very big for me. But also another big thing for me was the Team Fox shows, which the after parties are infamous. I will let that. You guys have heard about it.
I've heard a few of the stories lately. Once I mentioned we were having you on the podcast.
Yeah,
we heard some Spence running wild stories.
Yeah,
apparently you can hang with the drinking with the boys. And
but we'll leave that out of that. That's not something that I really want to make public. Kayfabe, brother. It's all right. But my mother has Parkinson's. And my family is very much into helping out the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research. And I wanted a way to do something for me to give back to Team Fox to help research for Parkinson's. Because my brother did stuff as college, like a pancake walk and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, well, the only outlet I have is pro wrestling.
It's wrestling, yeah.
So we did the first show at the YMCA in Worcester. And which I did a shitload of advertising for. We had front page articles in all the Worcester papers, the whole 9 yards. Good press. I hooked up with the former Worcester Tornadoes and had their mascot come and wrestle Robbie the Midget.
Yeah.
So which was great. And the main event was Brendan Locke defending the NECW Triple Crown with the Rock God Brett Adams versus Kenny Dykstra with me in his corner.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want my family had never come to a wrestling show, and at this point I'd been in the business for 10 years.
Yeah.
They were finally coming to a show for Team Fox. I wanted to see that, and Kenny was a family friend, so I wanted to manage Kenny one last time. And it was great. We raised a little bit of money for Team Fox for that show, but it gave me the idea that I wanted to do bigger and better. So I started looking into, for the next show, bringing in vendors to bring in names, which is all the fad, which is big on the tri-state area for a long time, but now it's more coming into the New England area, like with Sinner and Saints and Fan for Life and the guys over from NEFW, and just bringing in names, and working off a gimmick deal.
Right.
So we booked it at a hall in a full day event, going back to my original ideas for
the convention style shows
at this place in Worcester. And I had a ridiculous card booked. I mean, in the afternoon we were having a New Jersey company called Indie Girls coming in with women from around the world, including I made sure that some of our PWF wrestlers were in there, like Belmont and Sammy Lane and Mercedes KV was on it before she went down to
NXT. Yep.
Which kudos to her, and I hope she gets signed soon, brought up soon, because she's phenomenal. She's always phenomenal. And originally we had Luke Gallows versus, this is right after the whole Straight Edge Society, after he got fired, was supposed to work the Bulldozer.
Yeah,
that was the match, which was going to be a great match for Bulldozer. And then we were having the Chair Swing Freaks, which was Axel Rotten and Balls versus the Hoods in a hardcore match for the tag titles. And I was bringing in Carino to work Bob Evans, because they had never worked each other, but they knew each other from ROH.
Yep.
And Colby Carino was working, which I've known Colby since he was a baby because of Universal. And he was going to be involved in a Lightning Cup match, which was our multi-man title, was our trophy, which is very much a takeoff of the Young Lions Cup from Chikara. It was no secret that Matt Storm is a big Chikara fan.
Right.
So we did a lot of influence from Chikara in our latter years. And I was bringing in Rhythm and Blues.
Yep.
And I was going to have Sammy Laney's shoot a dance teacher. So I was going to have her as Peggy Sue.
Right.
Well, one problem after another happened with that. And everything was either a handshake deal or was in Facebook writing. Never a contract. It was saying, like, yes, I am bringing in this person, that person, everything is cool. We started advertising. First issue that we had a problem with was Luke Gallows. Now, I booked Luke through third party, through a friend. My friend Jamie Silverberg, Jay Silva, who was a Samtec guy, is very good friends with Kurt Hawkins.
Okay.
I didn't have a contact to Hawkins at that particular time. And not kudos, but thank you very much to Hawkins and Ryder, because they donated 8x10s and stuff towards a raffle for Team Fox. And actually, Hawkins got the entire first season of NXT roster and everybody there to sign an NXT program for us to auction off, which was awesome. So every time I saw him afterwards, I thanked him. But he got in contact with Gallows, and we had a money deal for X amount of dollars to come in to work, but he was taking care of his own travel. I was like, you keep all gimmicks. I don't care what you make at the Fan Fest.
Right,
I don't care what you're there. I'm going to give you a flat fee to work that night.
But you pay for yourself.
But you pay for yourself to come in. I heard everything was copacetic. Everything was cool. And I trust Jamie implicitly. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met in business. And I trust Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins too. But so when I would finally message what's his face, Luke Gallows on Facebook, I said, hi, I'm just to introduce myself, looking forward to having you. Kayfabe.
No answer.
Coming to a couple weeks before the show, I get a call saying he's not coming because you're not paying for his travel. You have not to. I'm like, well, this motherfucker couldn't flat tell me before I started advertising.
Right, yeah.
And then, so that was the first issue we had of that. Second one is we were hooked up with a guy by the name of Chris Morrow, who worked with Baltimore Fan Fest. Now, I was trying to get Fan Fest groups from anywhere and everywhere who were willing to be a part of it. And I was always selling it as, like, the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I was like, listen, we're not looking to make any money off of this deal. Come make your money, brother. We'll do well. And he was bringing in the Chair Swing Freaks and Rhythm and Blues.
Yep.
And I started advertising once again. Contacts me and says, I'm going through a divorce. I need to leave state. I'm like, dude, you wrote me, you put it in writing. It's Facebook for me. You put it in writing. He's like, I don't give a fuck. And he left. And he skipped town. And the show was in 3 weeks. The Storm Brothers had gone away for Labor Day weekend because they are involved in a festival as concert crew. And I text Matt. I'm like, we're fucked.
Yeah.
And he said, well, Kyle and I can't do anything. We're out in the boonies.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to hear what you have to do afterwards. What you do to fix it. So I started sending emails, calling every agent I possibly know, seeing if there's any way I could swing, reduce rates, or would you be willing to help me out any way possible? Yeah. Balls Mahoney never got back to me. Okay. I wasn't too worried about that in the first place because it was Balls. I thought they might be drama anyway. Axel gets back to me. Now, this is something that I've never actually outright admitted to anybody before I'm putting out here because now I really don't really care. Yeah. Is the deal I had with Axel, and he was gonna get Balls on board is I give them $200 flat.
Yeah.
Just to show that this show was actually going to happen. And they will work off of gimmicks.
Yeah.
Bring themselves up, the whole 9 yards, everything of that nature. So I Western Unioned Axel Rotten. It was $100 a piece, and he said, "I'll make sure that Balls gets it."
Yeah.
And I said to him, we spoke on a regular basis, and he said, "I understand the whole Parkinson's thing." He really felt for me, and he knew about the scenario with this guy that fucked him, who was one of his good friends. He said, "Because I got fucked in the process as well from him," and he said, "Well, take care of it." And the more I spoke to him, the more he's like, "Well, I'm not coming up if you're not going to put me up."
Yeah.
I'm like, "We had the agreement. It was $200 flat for you and Balls, and you're going to put yourself on. You're going to well, I'm not doing that unless you put me up, or if you're going to pay me." "Well, I'm not coming. You can go fuck yourself." "Well, I want my deposit back."
Yeah.
Hung up on me. Never got me my money back or anything of that nature. The motherfucker last year actually tried to friend request me on LinkedIn, and I denied him because I was "You got balls." But so that's my story that, Axel Rotten, you're a piece of shit. I heard that he got in a car accident. He had a seizure. I laughed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Karma gets you.
Yeah.
This is a show for my mom. It was very important to me, these Team Fox shows. So Axel Rotten stole my money, fucked me in the end, and did nothing for me.
Yeah.
I had to. I got in contact with Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
And worked out. I had to borrow money from a friend, which I paid back, eventually, but it took me a while to pay him back, to fly him out, and
And Honky doesn't come in just for one shots usually either.
No, but he did for the full day.
Yeah.
So basically, he was getting I was paying for a convention and all that. He kept all gimmicks as well. So he made a nice payday. He came in for all that. All his food, everything was taken care of. But he was a pretty penny. I spoke through third-party conference call with Greg Valentine, and Valentine he was offering me a reduced rate because he felt bad.
Right.
But after having to pay, for the debacle with Axel Rotten and paying for Honky Tonk Man and laying out the money for the hall, I couldn't afford flying another guy and all that. Yeah. So everything got switched, and the only person we really had, we had Carino versus Bob, which was a fun match. We actually put Bulldozer versus Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
Which was funny in itself, just saying he took the shake, rattle, and roll, and we still had Sammy Lane come out as Peggy Sue.
Yeah.
And he sang the song, and the whole place went nuts, and everything of that nature. But I was so burnt out after that show. I was like, I'm not going to do another Team Fox. It's like, I got burnt every fucking turn, 2 years in a row by different versions. I was like, and I gave myself a deadline. It's like, if I can't get written confirmations from people to come in for a third year of Team Fox, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have the stomach to do it. And I was like, I was already thinking in the back of my mind, I want to leave the business altogether. I'm so disgusted by people. I got fucked. People's word don't mean shit. Like I said, people might say that I might have stolen something. I've never stolen anything in my life. Might have shown me money. I never gypped anybody money. In fact, I paid people and gotten fucked.
Got ripped off, yeah.
So, it just that was the last Team Fox show, and then, but those things they stand close to my heart. But I would say my favorite PWF show was actually the one we had at the West End Civic Center in Providence, which was Genesis. It was Genesis 10. We had Nasty Boys.
Yep.
It was Trips versus Dunn TLC, which to this day I would have said no TLC had touched the one that I was in.
Right.
And that was not just because I was in that match. It was because it was a fucking great match. They tore the roof off.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that was a great match. Carino versus Blade was on that show. We had Rudy Boy Gonzalez, who was the original trainer of Daniel Bryan,
right, yeah,
and Paul London, and Shawn Michaels' assistant, and took over to school. He came in and did a seminar, and then him and his top team, the Texas Tornadoes, came in.
Yep.
So, and we drew gangbusters for that show as well, and it was a great show. And I could finally see all of our sponsors. This is what we're talking about.
Right. This is we're really doing this.
This is the stuff we really do. Yeah, you may make chump change here and there, but we really gave you guys a really good show, and to me that was fun. And it was just, it's bittersweet that it was that PWF is ended. It just because it was my baby. Like
right.
The one reoccurring thing that I mentioned here was my love for New England and my love for PWF. I said that, and I flat said it to Sheldon back in the day. I said to everybody, I bled red and black.
Right.
Like, literally, it's like that's the only place I wanted to work. When I had my heat with the Storm Brothers, I wasn't okay with working anywhere else or starting back in the business unless I was involved with PWF.
Yeah.
It was my baby. I helped Matt start the original one. I cut my teeth at Universal as a ring crew boy. It's really a shame that it went the way it went.
Were you in the room when the decision was made to stop running?
Well, basically, it came. What happened was that we lost the Davy Lopes Center because
there was some sort of, you guys had a show scheduled. They gave you the Dickens.
Yeah, that everything Bass told you there was legit. That the fact is that we had a show scheduled. We were bringing in Mikey and Maria. That's Mike Bennett. And the week of the show, they pulled it from us. And they said there's a new group in town running all the halls that we had to go through before them, and then we had to be off for a couple of months because we were going through our red tape paper. And throughout this entire time, we were doing everything right. We've always done right. We booked. Bass said right a thing. We booked people right. We did business right. We did things the right way. And you can take that away from PWF and any of our things. You might have had heat with any one of us, with Kyle, with Matt, with Rich, with Mark Reality, at any particular time. But we always try to do what was right for us, for the fans, and for everything that was good done. I was able, through some connections, to get us to the building in Taunton and a roller skating rink. And I had a long-term deal with them.
Yep.
And it was a good deal. And we drew very well for our first show there. And we were all set to bring in London Kendrick and to bring in Tony Atlas into our show.
Yeah, yep.
And this was part of where I was thinking, okay, we advertised the crap out of this show too. I was going to start to set us up in a position where we were going to have these connections with Sinners and Saints, with Fan for Life, that if I decided I was going to leave after Genesis, this relationship would already be in place.
Right, ready to move forward.
Ready to move forward. And the business model that I was pushing us into was different from whatever we ever did, but it would have carried Matt, Rich, and Roy forward, even if I was not there. We ran the first show, and I gave the guys full warning that, listen, the first show, you might not make a tremendous amount of money off the gate because we had a gate split deal. After we made, the deal was that after we made back our payroll, which wasn't tremendous at all.
Right.
We're gonna split the gate 50-50. So we split the gate, and they made it, but they kept full concessions. That was part of the deal.
Right.
So you keep full concessions, and you get half the gate, and you'll do well on concessions.
Yeah.
They basically broke even, which I said to him, honestly, you're lucky in this business to break even. The fact that you broke even on the first show only goes to show. It's a pretty good sign. Yeah. But anyway, we had to do it on a Sunday afternoon. And we were going to move, once the Patriots started, we were going to move it to a Saturday night. So finally, we announced Paul London and Brian Kendrick, and they're going to work JT Dunn and Tripp And we announced Brickhouse Baker versus Tony Atlas in an old school New England style match. And the hall basically says to us, we lost our shirt. We want $2,000 for you to rent it here again. And I'm like, dude, you were gung ho, you were happy, everything happened. Yeah. You just pulled that from us. So I said, if that's the case, then we're done.
Yeah.
And then I knew then and there that we can't bounce back from that. I was like, we can't. We just went on a hiatus. We came back. We were coming back bigger, better, and stronger than ever. We were in a position we actually made money on this last show.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't have major money, but we made money on this last show, and we were in a position that we're going to do better at this location. And we had vendors, we had the full 9 yards, and even bigger and better things coming ahead. And I called up Roy Rossi a couple of days later. I was like, listen, here's the financials, because I took over the books once Kyle Storm left.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, listen, we do well, but Roy, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. He's like, honestly, I can't either. I'm really feeling this way as well. But he's like, well, we got to talk to Matt and Rich.
Yeah.
But we were all in agreement that what could we do to try to save it? But there was really nothing we could do. And that show we were be splitting a crowd between us and Beyond that had Kevin Steen and a whole bunch of people on Sunday afternoon. It was like, so like Dunn was going to work a double shot that day, and we were already having arguments with him about pulling a double shot. Who booked you first, brother, and all that kind of bullshit. And it just sucked, and it was just a mutual agreement that we all had to come to. It's like, listen, Matt just got hired for a new job, his dream job.
Yeah.
I was getting brought into my dream job as well, and to be financially stable, getting married and all that jazz, and it just sucked. And it sucks that we had to close, and but you cannot say we did not fight all the way to the end.
Yeah.
We literally fought all the way to the end, and it sucks. It was conversations via the phone separately with everybody.
Yep.
But it was all an email with everybody saying we all.
This is it.
This is it. We cannot bounce back from this. It's like if we cancel this show, we're done.
And that was basically the line that was done, the finish line.
I mean, I'll never say never in the business.
Right, of course.
But in this incarnation and everything that's going on right now, I don't see it coming back.
Right. So now that the PWF is, you were there when it started in the barn, and it's come full circle, and where do you go from here, Spence?
Well, I'm done with the business. When I came back to New England, I would talk with Bass, I would talk with Teddy, Gregory Edwards.
Yep.
And they said, people still somewhat remember you. You could probably start managing again. And I said, something? There's nothing that I did that a Vernon Somoza, a Sean Gorman, or a Rock Guy Brad Adams could do that they couldn't do better than I did it.
Right.
So why am I going to take up a roster spot? I have no interest in that. And, they all say, that's pretty unselfish of you, especially in this business. I said, because I don't want to take up a roster spot for sake of because I'm an owner of a company or, of anything like that. In retrospect, I don't think I was that good at all. I don't think I was drizzling shits, but I don't think I was that good. So why am I going to put myself in that position to do that?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the only other place I could be is a booker or a promoter.
Right.
And honestly, if I'm not doing PWF, I don't want to do anything.
You're just not interested.
Yeah. I mean, are there dreams unfulfilled? Do I have things I feel that I would love to do? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be stupid. But these days, I'm loving my 9 to 5. I'm loving my weekends with my fiance, planning the wedding, and enjoying my life. And, one thing we talked about the other day is, we're laughing about it, was loyalty in the business.
Yeah.
It's non-existent. Piper said in his book, is like once you leave the business, so you lost all your friends, and people stop calling you and all this.
Yeah.
I still have a handful of people that I still talk to on a regular basis. Like I said to you, is like earlier that Rich Bass and Matt and the Rock God are all going to be groomsmen in my wedding.
Yeah.
And I'm having almost like a wrestling style wedding, which is kind of funny in that nature. But it's just that I'm ready to fulfill other dreams.
To move on.
I mean, people who know me since the beginning know that I've always wanted to be a father.
Yeah.
I want to be a dad. I want to have that. And one thing we were talking about the loyalty. My fiance was mentioning that. She's like, wow, you stopped hanging out with these people and this person stopped calling you and that. And I'm like, but that's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
And I said, but like I said to everybody, I'll never say never that I'll never come back.
Right, yeah.
But the circumstances have to be right, but it has to be right for my family, but it has to be right for me personally.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I don't foresee a future for me in the business, which is one of the reasons why I reached out to you guys and said, listen, I have stories to tell, and I got a lot of things to get off my chest, and it's very therapeutic. And Bass even said, it's therapeutic as hell. I was like, yeah, but you're still in the business.
Yeah,
I'm getting out. I mean, I really didn't shit on too many people. I mean, the people I shit on really deserve to be shit on. And shed some light and share my side of the story of things that I kept quiet on for a number of years, and it's probably gonna come as a shocker to some people that were very close to me that I didn't tell them that didn't know at all, and they're my best friends. So it's just it's bittersweet, but as I said to you guys, I want to put a final nail in a coffin of where I am in the business right now, and would I dig it up again? Like you never can say no.
Right, it's always a possibility. It's always there.
You don't leave the business. You just take time off.
Yeah.
That's what they say. But as of right now, I'm done. I'm grateful. I've learned a lot, and I like I said, it's like at the end of the day, in 5 years, if I'm still not involved in the business, people might not remember who I am. Okay, that's fine. But things that I put in motion, I can always be proud of the fact that I helped start PWS.
Right.
The PWF legacy will live on.
Of course,
it is.
yeah.
Carino is actually restarting a PWF branch in North Carolina, but he's calling it PWF Legacy.
Yeah.
And he already announced that Jason Blade is going to be the first champion.
Yeah. I'd seen that online.
So, which is great.
Yeah.
And he said, he wants to do what we did and keep the lineage alive.
Yeah.
Which keeps the hard work, because the person who deserves the most credit of keeping PWF alive over the last 13 years is Matt Storm.
Right.
Hands down. He's been the only solid from day one all the way through.
Till now, yeah.
And the fact that Carino is going to recognize our champions as part of the lineage, and, whether he keeps Blade around as a champion or has it dropped to somebody down there.
It's a nod to the hard work.
It's a nod to all of us, but also keeps his Universal title alive, keeps the bullshit of the Mid-South, keeps the New Jersey alive. And it's nice, like I said, the legacy is what's going to keep the name PWF going, because a lot of people, like you spoke with the Hoods, and they kept on talking what PWF did for the Hoods.
Yeah.
What PWF did for Bass. I mean, whatever happened with Levesque and everything like that, he cut his teeth with NCW in the beginning of PWF towards today. Tony cannot knock that at all, regardless of how it ended or anything of that nature. People got their pushes, and like I said, we gave opportunities. Every booker, from me all the way to the end, who was Rich Bass and everybody in between, their goal was to give people opportunities.
Yeah.
And if I could say anything, when I see somebody on Raw, when I see someone on SmackDown, when I see on TNA, when I see them on ROH, they cut their teeth with PWF. You're always going to be a PWF boy, regardless of where you went.
Well, man, it was our pleasure, honestly, to have you come on.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And I hope you feel like you got a lot of your stories out. I'm sure it's tough. I'm sure in the middle of the night tonight you'll be, oh man, I forgot to mention this. And
there's not very much that, like, I'm looking at my notes right here. There's not really much that I left out, and it's not strategically why I left it out per se. It's just that and I came in, I was going to be fired up. I was going to shit on this guy and shit on that guy and tell them how I really feel. But something, the people who I shit on
were the ones that deserved it.
The ones who deserved it.
Yeah.
I mean, and those are the people who fucked me.
Yeah.
And there's people here who I omitted who fucked me, who are not even worth mentioning their name because
it's not even worth it.
They're not even in my life. And I give two rats asses about that. And if certain people who are listening to this podcast right now could probably read through the lines and know exactly who I am talking about right now. But like I said, that person is not even worth me bringing up because they're not worth the spit.
The trouble,
But thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys, like I said, first time meeting me and talking to me, what I've done here in New England. And what I've done
I didn't know you had your hand in like you mentioned that, and as many things as you did. I don't know, man. It was our pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, I want to do one with like Matt and you and Rich, and we'll do like a big round table kind of deal.
We'd love to
and maybe get like a retrospective, like you said, the history kind of thing.
We tried to do that once, and it was a disaster. So I think if you guys coming in doing that, because we were trying to do a DVD of that, would be awesome.
I think we would be able
I would
to
absolutely
work it out.
love to do that. And even Bass said in his thing, he's like he didn't want it to be real, and Matt didn't want it to be real, but we knew the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
But thank you guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
Thank you so much for coming down on the Mack cast. You had a lot of stories to tell, and it was much appreciated. Now the people know. And this is a comment for any local bookers that were listening to this. Do not book Axl Rotten. Apparently he's a shitbag. So.
To say the least.
So he might steal your money. So thanks very much. We're going to end this with an official handshake.
Thanks, brothers.
I'm Monster Mack, as always, and this is training number 1. Rocking the light blue mask. I love it, trainee. And I just want to thank everyone for listening to the Mack cast. Everyone have a good day or night, depending on what time it is.